And welcome to the Marcia Week show this Sunday, June the 1st, the very first day of June, the beginning of the hurricane season, they tell us. And certainly we want to keep that in mind. We don't want that to be out of our attention whatsoever. But we do want to be alert. We do want to pay attention. We do want to be paying attention to what the Barbados Meteorological Office shares with us. Of course, you know, there's several other websites that you can refer to as well. The National Oceanic NOAA, the United States, from which our own meteorological office, I believe, gets some valid information. And there are several others that I use to keep tabs of what's happening where this time of the year is concerned. But let me take the opportunity this evening to welcome all of you and to let you know that it is a very unusual honor of mine to be hosting the show tonight, as Marcia is on the mic on the move, and as you would have seen from some of the YouTube videos that you might have seen posted, she is in Dominica, and we are certainly wishing and praying for her safe travels there, her safe return, and to know what the people in Dominica are feeling concerning some recent developments relative to our Prime Minister's interference, as it is alleged, in the elections there in Dominica. And we certainly are hoping that this is not true, but knowing the individual, it would not surprise me in the least. I've been paying a lot of attention to the shows as they have gone um, on throughout the last couple of days, and certainly it's been informative. And I want to say how much I thank Adrian Hines for the education that he takes us through. Tremendous stuff, and I hope one night I can be back on with him. He's done such a tremendous job of exposing, revealing definite facts. You know, I'm always quick to say you're entitled to your own opinion, but you're not entitled to your own facts. All right. So let me, before I get into my contribution for tonight, let me welcome all of you. Carol and ADG and Judy Jilts. Welcome, Judy. Really great to have you with us again tonight. Taroni, thank you so much for your kind comments and your contribution on Friday night. Tremendous stuff. We also want to say good night to you too, Monica and Jefferson Sobers, Lucinda, Aline. A pleasure to have you joining us tonight. I know Marcy is going to keep me on my toes because we've clipped past 200 and she's going to make sure I get that national anthem out there as quickly as possible. Joyanne Faith and Marva Hunt, all of you that are joining us, Flo Joe Maloney, Angela Burke. Listen, we could not have this show without you, and it would not be the success it has been without you. Sir Alfred Benjamin, great to see you back with us again tonight. Sir Nigel Carrington, good night to you as well. And Matthew Brown, Trevor, Shirley, good night to you as well. Locked on from Athens in Greece. Okay. Oh, wow. Thank you, Shirley. Great to have you with us tonight. And Carol, Chantel Williams, Jerry Nelson, Shirley as well, Mystic Angel. Great to have all of you that always give this show your support. We're going to go straight into the national anthem. I don't believe I have that what you call it again, that clip that Dave plays with the national pledge. But if I do find it, you know I'm going to share it. But until then, ladies and gentlemen, let's honor our country, first of all, with the playing of the national anthem. Well, yes, thank you so very much. Strict guardians of our heritage, firm craftsmen of our faith. And that's our national anthem. Now I invite you to join me as we repeat, I almost said recite, repeat our national pledge. I pledge allegiance to my country, Barbados, and to my flag, to uphold and defend their honor, and by my living, to do credit to my nation wherever I go. That is the pledge that we make to our country. And I have said it before, and I will say it again. We don't make a pledge to our political party. We make our pledge to our country and to our national flag. That is where our fundamental commitment must lay as citizens of this country. It must exceed beyond all shadow of a doubt any commitment to any political entity in the country. If it doesn't, then we are doing our nation and our flag a disservice. And I put it to you tonight that our commitment as the loyal opposition is to Barbados, to our nation, and to the flag. Those people who have desecrated that flag by allowing it to touch the ground, whether it was buried or not, it is an absolute sacrilege in the context of a nation's sovereignty for their flag to touch the ground. Even as we raise and lower it on the different buildings in our country, for whatever reason, whether it be the passing of a official or something of this of that nature, it is a sovereign symbol to us as a country. And for a leader to oversee that flag touching the earth, touching the ground, is, to me, is almost tantamount to treason to our country. You have desecrated one of the most sacred and sovereign symbols of Barbados. And as the leader of the country, you should be apologizing to our people. Now, that's just my opening salvo. I want to touch on a few things this evening as time permits me, and I trust I can get through a number of them. First of all, let me touch on this matter of fuel costs, fuel prices. Now, I am not going to get into repeating over and over things that two eloquent gentlemen, expert economists, lecturers at the UWI University of the West Indies Cave Hill campus, highly respected economists and lecturers at our premier university in the Caribbean. I am not going to, over speak and overdo what has been expressed through this show before by both of these gentlemen. And I'm referring to Mr. Anthony Wood and to Mr. Michael Howard. These are two gentlemen who I respect and who I acknowledge to be apolitical in their assessments as economists. And because they don't subscribe to the government's narrative, we have all kind of nasty, denigrating, disingenuous remarks cast at them. And that in itself should tell us the type of leadership that we have in this country. I am not going to get into the details. I'm not an economist, but I was reading the article in the Nation newspaper carried with regards to the matter of fuel cost impact by external factors. And I can't help but agree with Mr. Wood and Mr. Howard that if you're going to talk about external factors, the Right Honorable Minister of Finance, we, the people of Barbados, want to know what they are. What external factors are you talking about? Because all around the world, fuel prices are going down or plummeting. Even in the United Kingdom, our electrical gas fuel adjustment charge here in Barbados, lowest it has ever been since 2021. I believe it is referenced in 2021. The FCA is listed at 31.7588 cents per kilowatt hour, a decline of 4.8082 cents from the April figure, and the lowest since June 2021 when it was 29.9832 cents. But our gas has gone up according to the government our fuel has increased, and I'm just looking here, by 6 cents for gasoline and by 7 cents for diesel, while all around the world, fuel costs are coming down. And to add insult to injury, the Minister of Finance is going to express one of the most ludicrous statements. Listen to this. The policy of the government is, let us move away from fossil fuels as fast as we can in order to ensure that what happens outside does not necessarily cause us to be dislocated. Does this minister, or has he done the research or spoken with the automotive dealers in this country to find out what is involved with an electric or hybrid vehicle? Has he discussed the fact, number one, that slave labor in African states using African children that you don't hear a word from Barbados about, you don't hear a word from UNICEF about, abusing the little children of Africa, the little nigger children down there, they ain't worth nothing. So who cares? Mining lithium to produce these batteries, not a word from our government with regards to that abuse of children in Africa. Secondly, you're hearing nothing about the fact. Now, I'll tell you this, I'm an automotive man. I know my business. I dealt with BMW and I watch my competitors in Mercedes, Audi, Jaguar, Volvo. I know all of them. So I am not speaking from a position of theory. I'm speaking from a position of full knowledge and practicality. The replacement cost of one of these batteries in Barbados is in excess of $60,000. It has an 8-year warranty, which means if you keep your car for 4 years or 5 years and you sell it, the person who buys your car has another 4 years, 5 at the maximum, before he has to replace that vehicle's battery. And after 10 years, you can imagine what the value of your vehicle is going to be and what the cost of the battery is going to be. So you could as well take the vehicle and dump it in the gully, because the cost of the battery alone is going to be way in excess of the new resaleable value of your vehicle. That's the second thing the minister has no clue about. He hasn't done his research. And then you're going to talk about moving away from fossil fuels. Let us get real and let us get serious. You seriously think Saudi Arabia, Iraq and Iran and Russia are going to be in a hurry to move away from fossil fuels when it brings so much income and wealth to their countries? That in itself is a joke. And then you're going to talk about Barbados being able to sustain all these electric cars. Now, let me help you to understand something quickly in the time that I have. There's a difference between a hybrid and an all-electric car. There are hybrids that are electric motors driven or charged by a battery with a gasoline engine without a gearbox. That means that that vehicle does not use the gas engine to drive the car. It uses the gas engine only to charge the battery. The car is driven by the electric motor. Then you have hybrids where below certain speeds and in certain conditions, the gasoline engine cuts in, takes over the driving of the vehicle through a gearbox as normal, rather than the electrical motors. And that is how some of them operate. In terms of the operation. Sir Alfred Benjamin is reminding me, and you're correct, sir, that some of these electric cars go up to 5 years already on them before entering Barbados. So when it enters Barbados and you buy it, you have about 3 to 5 years maximum before the battery is likely going to be needed to replace. The warranty generally from a new car dealer. We do not know from used car dealers what any warranty is where the battery is concerned. But from the new car dealers, warranties are generally around 8 years. Okay? So let us don't fool ourselves with this matter. When these vehicles come into Barbados, and you put all of them on electrical grid. I read a documentary not long ago, recently, in which they were referring to a gentleman in the USA who got rid of all of his diesel trucks, replaced them with all electric trucks. I can't remember the city it was in. And the night that he went to charge all of his trucks to do his deliveries the next day across the US, He shut down the electrical grid of his city. That was the amount of energy that he pulled in order to charge his trucks. That is a fact. That is not an opinion. That is a fact. Go and look up this story for yourself. Do your own research. So you do have these electrical vehicles that are charged from the engines. They do not have a charging point on the vehicle. But then there are those vehicles that do have a charging point, which means you have to plug them into the electricity, special systems that have to be installed in your home. And if a washing machine pulls so much current, if a heater from a water heater pulls so much current, if a microwave pulls so much current, how much current you think it's going to pull to charge your electric car? I'm not the expert. I'm going to leave that out there. Moving along quickly. Let me touch very quickly on this matter, and I wanted to do something. Let me see if I can move real fast. On the matter of rum. I think that that has been dealt with and exhausted, but I have my little piece of say if I can. And I could not help but think how, I don't even know what word to use. Let me use the word going through my mind. Ludicrous it was for both the Minister of Agriculture and the Minister of Finance to suggest an increase in sales overseas of Barbados rum from $50 million to $1 billion. Now, I dare say all Barbadians would go through the roof if that were possible. Show me the sugar cane. Because as far as I recall, rum comes from molasses, I think, and syrup. My father used to work with the sugar industry, and I used to be at Andrew's factory and Haggett's factory almost every blessed day when I was going to school. So I know syrup and sugar. I know the times when we used to produce 186,000 tons of sugar. We don't get anywhere near that at the moment. We don't even get near 9,000 tons of sugar. So, Mr. Minister of Agriculture, Mr. Minister of Finance, are you going to be importing sugar? Are you going to be importing molasses and syrup? Are you going to enlarge the factory at Mount Gay so big that it can produce all these thousands and thousands of gallons of rum that you're going to export? And sir, where is the market that you are going to place this rum in? And what are you going to do about coming up against the competition in the markets, the vodkas and the other products that are sold in the market, sir, in those countries? What is the plan? What is the idea? Because you can't just come and throw things around. You have to have a plan. And that is what I have understood is the basic fundamental deficit of this administration. They keep throwing out these grandiose sounding things with no idea of what vision they have, what goal they have, how you're going to achieve it, what are the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats. So basic business tells you that those are the areas you ought to engage before you open your mouth. I can't even get into it, and I may not be able to get to it tonight, but I do want to touch, let me move from that quickly, and I do want to touch on this ongoing feud between the Barbados Labour Party and the Democratic Labour Party and the leadership of the DLP and the leadership of the Barbados Labour Party. Let me remind people in Barbados that it was several parliamentarians when the Prime Minister was leader of the opposition that spoke to former Prime Minister Owen Arthur and told him that if he did not return to the leadership of the Barbados Labour Party, that the party would dissolve and be in trouble because they wanted to have MAM removed. Those are the same people sitting in the background now. Some of them, some have left and gone on. And I find it very interesting that I don't hear a word from the stalwarts of the Barbados Labour Party in support of this current administration. Not a word, but of course, it don't matter to this current administration because the legacy of all the Fords and all the Vic Johnsons and all that, their history, don't care about them now. They ain't done nothing. You see, that is the mentality and the attitude, just like we were seeing with the woke group in the United States of America trying to eradicate their history and take out all these statues and all this mental insanity, as if doing that is going to change what has happened in history. It would do you well to acknowledge, ma'am and government, what has been accomplished in this country through former leaders and former governments and stop the foolishness. Now, I don't know if I'm going to have the time. I can take a couple of minutes And I'm going to see if I can take you into a very quick presentation. Let me see if I can find it. Let me see if I can find it, because I watched a video that was shown here on this show, and I believe that um, it showed a. Let me get it here. Let me make sure I get it. All right, I'm not seeing it there. You see, this is where I need my good friend Dave. Dave, boy, I tell you, Dave is the man for me. Let me see if I can find it here from my computer, because I watched a video on the lost 10 years of the previous administration, the Democratic Labour Party administration. And I couldn't help but think, why are these people so disingenuous to actually acknowledge the fact that there were things accomplished during the years of the Frundle Stewart administration? Now, remember, the Democratic Labour Party won government in 2008. Now, I am advocating for the DLP, and I am not advocating for the BLP. I am dealing in facts. And I thought what I would do is go through this video quickly and just pull slides that you could see what was accomplished between 2008, 2010, and 2018 by the previous administration. Now, I trust you can see it okay. I hope you can. I don't know how to get it bigger or smaller. I am going to have to depend on my good friend Dave, but he's not with me yet. So I hope I can get it done. Here, I hope you can see it. I hope you can see it okay. But here we have the Ministry of Education, Science and Technology and Innovation. This is during the Frundle Stewart administration. We had a video on this, but I chose to take the slides so you could look at them and read them carefully. Building of the Blackman and Gollett Primary, new Maria Holder schools in Christchurch, refurbishment of the Lodge School and Parkinson Memorial Secondary School, expansion of the Erdiston Teachers College, introduction of new degree program in the BCC, a Barbados Community College, appointment of over 400 teachers. Then you had in the Ministry of Finance the establishment of a Financial Services Commission, FSC, that is going today. Establishing the Barbados Revenue Authority that the current administration is all setting about. Creating a new government procurement program and system. We can go to the next one, the Ministry of Energy. In National Sustainable Energy Policy. These are the facts. Sustainable Energy Investment Program, the Barbados Light and Power Act of 2013. Then we go to the Ministry of Tourism and International Transport, new hotel brands, Sandals, Hyatt and Wyndham, Tourism Industrial Relief Fund, Barbados Port Amendment Bill 2014. And I can go on and on and on. These are the facts. Now, if this Prime Minister, Mr. Frundle Stewart, was as bad as I see people telling me or trying to tell me he was in Facebook, where I am, then I ought not to see all these achievements. You can go right ahead and you can see all of them there. I got 5 minutes, so I'm just going to slip through them. Ministry of Labor, Holiday with Pay Act, Minimum Wage Act, Labor Department Act, Employment Right Tribunal, Employment Rights Act of 2012. You have then the Ministry of Culture, Sports and Youth, the enactment of the Cultural Industries Development Act, development of the first National Youth Policy of Barbados. All of these things were accomplished under the previous administration led by Mr. Frundle Stewart. I am not here making a case for Mr. Frundle Stewart, but I don't like liars, and I don't like it when people lie. I think that if a man has done a job, my mother taught me, give Jack his jacket. I don't have to like him. I don't have to agree with everything. But if he has done things that are to the benefit of the country, what is so difficult for you to actually acknowledge it? You can't say that Owen Arthur has not done things to the benefit of the country. You can't say Tom Adams has not done things to the benefit of the country. You can't say Errol Barra has not done things to the benefit of the country. These are facts. You can't deny the facts. They are there. Now, if you want to take them and contrast them with this current administration, that is another subject. But I just wanted to share these with you quickly in the few minutes I have. And listen, don't let anybody, and I'm speaking to the members of the Democratic Labour Party. I'm not going to say you all don't need to get your act together. Some of you are more concerned about your own ego and your own personal agendas and your own personal feelings than you are where the country is concerned. And I'm asking you, please, think more about Barbados and less about yourself or even the party. Do what is in the best interest of Barbados. And right now, according to the system we have operated in this country, as much as I would like to see changes myself, this is fundamentally a two-party country. Barbados Labour Party, Democratic Labour Party. Can that change? I don't know. We've had a lot of parties come up, a lot of different political parties come up and have not made a single dent of any significance into the current method and methodologies that we have. But I am hopeful that at some point in time, maybe it could happen. I am not one that is going to say things are impossible, because I've learned down through the years, especially as a Christian and as a minister, that with God, all things are possible. I have learned that. So sometimes you can look at things that look like they will never happen, and all of a sudden you find yourself faced with a thing that you thought could not occur. All right? But I just wanted to share these slow facts for you, and I'm going to terminate that for now. I just wanted to share these slow facts with you so that you could see for yourself. For yourself. You don't have to agree with the individual. I don't have to agree with Mia Motley. But one thing I will tell you is that I observe that this administration doesn't like to be criticized. When they were in opposition, they used to criticize left, right, and center. We have the videos for them speaking in the House of Assembly. We have the videos with them speaking on the political platform and the campaign trail. They were highly critical of the previous administration. Now anybody open their mouth and are critical of this current administration, you want to dismiss them. And I'll tell you this. Any mature leadership, I made a note, any mature leadership learns to benefit from the criticism that it receives. Because I've discovered that you don't know everything. There are other points of view. There are people that see things from different angles, and they're going to be critical of you because you're doing foolishness, and they know it. And that is why I have the greatest respect for Mr. Anthony Wood and Mr. Michael Howard, who have no political agenda. There are economists, there are lecturers, professionals respected across the Caribbean in our university, and you are going to dismiss them because they don't agree with what you're doing? If you're doing foolishness, you're going to be criticized. Accept that fact. I'm going to stop there for now. I haven't finished all I want to say, but I have a great friend of mine in the green room. I hear Marcia calling it now. And I want to bring her in right away because I enjoy sharing this show so much with her. And I thought I have not listened to this. All I would say is that I am hearing all of those wonderful crickets and whistling frogs in the background that are so enjoyable and encouraging for us in the night hour. Good evening, Rose, and welcome to the Marcia Weeks Show.
Good evening, Pastor Ferdy.
Oh, you're good and loud. This is the best I've heard you ever.
Always a pleasure to be sharing this platform with you. And I do hope that the noises in the countryside are not too distracting.
Absolutely not. There are music to our ears, I can tell you. Enjoyable.
Thank you. Thank you. And may I take the opportunity to greet, as I always do, the loyal sons and daughters of good evening, firm craftsmen of our faith. And I was in the green room. Thanks for bringing me out of the green room. But I was in the green room from almost the beginning and listening to the various areas you touched on, and certainly it sets a good platform for what I intend to share tonight. And I've been listening again. The this Sunday evening just passed. Um, what a way to spend my Sunday afternoon! But to make sure that we in this studio, we on this platform are delivering the facts straight from the horse's mouth, and not like what I've been hearing from that other side, narratives that are not truth, are
Hmm.
not true and misinformed. So I know I would have heard like there were people in the various social media uh, denying or refuting that the prime minister did say that Mr. John could go down where she come from. I heard it live. I was listening after I had stopped listening after the DLP had finished. I switched to them because Pastor Ferdy, I want to be fair and bring a balance to any presentation that I offer. And so this afternoon, I listened again to the some of the deliveries focusing on and not extrapolating out of context and bringing it to you. So please, tonight I want to speak um not on what I had planned before or would have sent you in my summary. It brings in some of that, but the shift has been made because of what's playing on my mind and what remains a concern in terms of where we seem to be heading. So could do you have the document I sent?
I believe I do. I'm going to add it to the show.
Look, it's
Um,
here. It's here on the screen.
right now, here's the thing.
Good.
Here's the thing I now have to learn. I have to learn how to get it bigger. So let me see if I can get that done while you are speaking.
Yes, please. And this session tonight, my topic tonight, is based on what I would have heard in the delivery, passionate, uh, bold, um, overly confident, quite in her inevitable fashion from the Honorable Senator. I don't know all the titles to give to her, Ambassador Sherpa Liz Thompson. And hence my topic, legend versus legacy. Um, may Are you talking too much? How's your throat?
I am
Could
I
I
my my throat is going pretty well. I did have some problems with it, but I think it's getting back there. So if you wish, I can read it for you. That's fine.
I would appreciate that. Although I can't read it, it will mean that I'll be squinting and right up to the screen. And
Well,
I don't think we
as I'm
want that.
right, as
All
I'm
right.
reading it, I'm going to see if I can enlarge in it, but I'll just keep reading it. I'm not the expert at these things, but I think Dave will be joining us shortly and he'll take over. But let me try
And
to read it.
your voice is so much better than mine in terms of your reading and use of
Yeah,
your
I don't know
tone.
the people like they like to hear you more than me, so I don't know, but I can
So
go ahead and read it for
over
you.
to you,
Yes,
sir.
right. Legend versus legacy. A legacy is something that is passed down from the past, whether it's physical assets like money or property, or intangible things like values, beliefs, or achievements. It represents the lasting impact of a person, group, or event on future generations.
Not that, Pastor Ferdy, the impact on future generations.
Yes, ma'am.
Let's go.
A political legacy refers to the lasting impact and influence a politician or a political movement has on a society, even after they leave office or the movement ends. It encompasses both tangible policy achievements, hard legacy, and the enduring memories, feelings, and ideas associated with a politician or movement, soft legacy. These legacies can shape public opinion, influence future policy debates, and even impact how citizens understand and engage with politics.
And so just let me pull out here. We are tracing hard legacies, which would be policy achievements. And we are also tracing soft legacies, which would be the values and the principles that would have been left for present, but most importantly, future generations. I hope you see where I'm going
I,
already.
I see where you're going, trust me. I see where you're going. Now, can we trace any political legacies in Barbados? We can point to our national heroes. The 11 national heroes of Barbados are Bussa, Sarah Ann Gill, Samuel Jackman Prescott, Dr. Charles Duncan O'Neill, Clement Osborne Payne, Sir Grantley Adams, Sir Hugh Springer, Errol Barra, Sir Frank Walcott, Sir Garfield Sobers, and Robin Rihanna Fenty.
And
These,
do pardon me if I pause at Sir Garfield Sobers. I'm still to work out if that is a legacy that person has brought a legacy or creating a legend.
okay,
Let's continue.
these individuals have been recognized for their significant contributions to Barbados's history and nationhood. Okay, let me move to the next one.
Yes, please.
Good. Okay.
And we're just giving a little synopsis on why these persons have been chosen as national heroes and what legacy they would have left for future generations.
Bussa was a prominent Barbadian freedom fighter and national hero who led the 1816 slave rebellion in Barbados. He's remembered for his bravery and leadership in the fight against slavery and is commemorated through various monuments, including the Emancipation Statue in Bridgetown.
Thank you.
Sarah Ann Gill donated the land on which the first Methodist church was built in Barbados. For her exploits in standing firm against oppression in a society in which she was unlikely to find support, firstly, as a non white person, and secondly, as a woman, she was named as a national heroine.
Yes.
Heroine. I hope I have the pronunciation Correct. I don't want it to
Yeah.
sound as if she is a drug. The right Samuel Jackman Prescott, 1806 to 1871, a politician, journalist, and reformer. In 1843, he became the first person of color elected to Barbados's House of Assembly. Prescott fought for emancipation and equal rights, laying the groundwork for democracy. Charles Duncan O'Neill, 30th of November 1879 to the 19th of November 1936, was a Barbadian physician, politician, and workers' rights activist. Clement Osborne Payne, 1904 to 7th of April 1941, was a Trinidadian-born pioneer in the Caribbean trade union movement.
And we
But
don't have to speak on that. The 1937 riots were very real.
right. So we will pass that then, okay?
And no, let's look at the legacy
Okay.
left.
Right. The rioting led to a political commission of inquiry, the Moyen Commission, to investigate the situation in Barbados and other British West Indies colonies. The Moyen Commission determined that all of Payne's charges against the island's rulers were accurate. In its report, it insisted on reforms that Payne had proposed, including the introduction of trade union legislation. Sir Grantley Herbert Adams was appointed Barbados's first premier on February the 1st, 1953, and served until 1966, when Barbados gained political independence and the office was renamed to Prime Minister, according to Wikipedia. He was also the first and only Prime Minister of the West Indies Federation, serving from 1958 to 1962.
And may just quickly summarize what follows. We owe it to him for adult suffrage, the vote that is now being desecrated, that is now being trivialized, may I say, because people want someone to help them do the heavy lifting, and people want to create power for themselves. It was Sir Grantley Adams that brought adult suffrage to Barbados, so that those, we know how it was, we've said it over and over, those voting wasn't limited to those who had a certain amount of money or property. That is the legacy up until the 21st of May, 2025. That legacy remains because of Sir Grantley Adams. Could we go on quickly, please? Thank you.
Right. Would you like me to finish reading that segment there, the last paragraph in 1950?
We could move on.
We can move on to the next one.
Yes.
Okay, great. All right. I'm going to pick it up from Amendment Act, the Representation of the People Amendment Act of 1950 gave all persons aged 21 and over the right to vote without any income or property qualification, and to contest elections also without any income or property qualification. Errol Barrow is a national hero in Barbados, largely due to his significant role in the nation's journey toward independence and his leadership as the first prime minister. He's often referred to as the father of independence because of his consistent advocacy for self-governance and his instrumental leadership in achieving it in 1966. Barrow's commitment to Barbadian sovereignty and his impactful political career have cemented his place as a revered figure in the country's history.
And I may interject here and summarize. His legacy remains. How can we ever forget that on soon after independence, he stood in the UN chambers, headquarters, and he declared, friends of all, satellites of none. How could we ever forget that? His legacy remains when he asks us, what is your mirror image? What mirror image do you have of yourself? His legacy remains as the one who sought to have universal education accessible from primary through tertiary, with BCC providing sixth form education and other for those who could not make it into the limited places in the schools that existed. How can we forget his legacy when he introduced the National Health Insurance and scheme?
Social security, yes, and free
Yes,
secondary education for all.
and when he went to borrow that money from Humphrey Walker, the first director, Humphrey tell him he ain't getting it. And he did not fire Humphrey. He called him back and said, look, remember who you're talking to. But I'm glad that you're protecting the people's money. And how can we forget so many other things? That is legacy, the tangibles as well as the intangibles of that legacy. Could we continue, please? Thank you.
Absolutely, ma'am. He introduced that aspect, secondary education, introduced school meals on an improved nutritional basis, and that secondary education would be free, and subsequently tertiary education would be free of charge. So Frank
Yes.
Walcott played a key role in organizing the Barbados labor movement and was a major figure in stimulating participation in the nation's political process. Sir Garfield Sobers is a national hero of Barbados and the West Indies, primarily due to his extraordinary achievements as a cricketer and his positive influence on the sport and the region. He is widely regarded as one of the greatest all round cricketers of all time.
And not only the region, but globally.
Yes, absolutely.
Globally, a legacy. He is a legend also because of the stories built around him. But he has left a lasting legacy, and he remains revered even up until now. Long live, may his life be good, because of the legacy that remains through his contribution to cricket and sports in general. Now, Pastor Ferdy, do you have that short clip that I sent?
Now, I don't have it. I think that went through to Dave. I am going to nevertheless try to see if I can find it. So I'm going to ask you to please just go ahead and continue to share while I look to see if I can pull that up for you.
Yes. I will speak from memory. Why I am I transitioning now to to from legacy to legend. On the night of that last meeting, and Liz Thompson was speaking, she told the those listening that why she asked, or she explained why they should vote for Chad Blackburn. And she highlighted three areas: voting, I think, for the person, voting for the party, and voting for the leader. And the emphasis was for the leader. And she used the two words, legacy and legend. Her contrast was that the DLP's the DLP uses the legacy of a dead arrow barrel. And I found that to be dismissive and disrespectful. While the BLP has created a legend. And what is a legend? A legend is can be a person, or is a person who is completely different from a legacy. They are famous, they have the pull, they have the draw. It becomes like a folklore. A legend is a folklore. It is not lasting. It is not something that's tangible. It goes by hearsay. It is that meeting, that last campaign meeting, Pastor Ferdy. And here we are being told that give them Mia again. Give them Mia, because Mia is a legend. The Prime Minister is a legend. She has become a legend. What do we want? A legend or a legacy? But I did say, and it could be a bit facetious, but not disrespectful, that what legacy is being left by her for us, future generations. That legacy, I dare say, would be debt and more debt and more debt and more debt. The legacy that is being left for us is that our prime land, and let us talk about the old General Hospital, has been given away. That is the legend. So a story will be told. When people pass and they see the Fritzen Bank, they say, see that land? That was the old General Hospital. But a Prime Minister called Mia Motley gave it away to the Fritzen Bank, give it away for Fritzen Bank to set up what you see now. That would be a folklore, in my opinion. Or if it is considered a legacy that is not for future generation, nothing permanent for future generation, but given away. So could we see what Liz Thompson had said?
The critical question in this election as to why you should vote for the Barbados Labour Party, as to
Are you
why
hearing?
you should add
Yes, please.
29 to a government that already holds all but one seat in the parliament. I say to you two things. Three, actually. We have the best candidate in the race. We have the best party in the race. We have the best leader in the Caribbean. And while the Democratic Labour Party is running on the legacy of a dead arrow barrel, we are running on the legend that Mia Motley has become. Mia Motley, wherever you go now, people tell you, I want your Prime Minister. I wish we had her. The woman is something else. From big country to small country, Barbados has now distinguished itself on the international stage by the quality of its policy, by the quality of its leadership, by the quality of its engagement, by the quality of its communication, by the quality of its delivery, by the quality of its insight, by the quality of its vision, by the quality that is typically Barbadian, but is not found within the Democratic Labour Party. And so I have come to talk politics and not policy.
Let's stop there.
So wait a minute. Let me see if I get this thing right. So prior to Mia Motley, Barbados ain't had no international recognition or nobody on the nation in an international arena that brought Barbados into the respect of the global. This woman is riding on the coattails of people like Errol Barra, who spoke in the UN, clear as daylight. Tom Adams, Owen Arthur, these were men respected to the point where the President of the United States of America, I remember when he sought to implement the shipwriters agreement, and Glenn is going to be with us shortly, and he can tell you whether I'm saying it's true or not. When he sought to implement the shipwriters agreement in the Caribbean, giving the United States the right to enter our sovereign waters without our consent, Owen Arthur told the President of America cannot happen in Barbados. And the President of the United States of America had to respect Owen Seymour Arthur. You're telling me that we have only now come to the global environment. Let me make it very clear. That nonsense that Liz Thompson is espousing has to do with the climate change activism of the Prime Minister. If it was not for that fact, she would not be even known globally. Nothing to do with Barbados. She has not promoted Barbados. I have listened to her speeches overseas. Anybody can pull them up and tell me how much you hear her talk about this country compared to how much she talks about climate change. That is what brought her to the global environment. We are not going to take away the fact that she can speak well, but speaking well and having plan and vision and implementation are two different things altogether. Please don't get me upset. Go ahead.
Could we
Rose.
thank you. I was going to say similar sentiments, similar concerns, similar remarks.
Disrespectful.
And on did you hear Liz Thompson, the manner in which she spoke about the dead Errol Barrow? That's
Yes.
the region. That's derisive.
So then what we have is the dead Grantley Adams. He had nothing to do. He had nothing to do with where the BLP is now. Tom Adams, the dead Tom Adams, had nothing to do with where the BLP is now. The dead Owen Arthur has nothing to do with how the BLP is now. Everything is about Mia Amor Motley. What rubbish are we hearing? Are we really going to subscribe to this stupidity? Are we so silly as a country to denigrate and dismiss the legacy of our leaders, both DLP and BLP, and bring everything now as though all of a sudden Barbados has suddenly arrived on the scene because of Mia Amor Motley? That is why she's trying to get rid of the legacy by implementing all this republic issues under her guise, and that is why they wanted to get rid of Independence Day, so that in the future my great-grandchildren would only know about Mia Amor Motley. Well, I'm going to tell you, not going to happen under my watch. Sorry.
And thank you for inputting.
Please don't get me upset. I want to keep cool.
So could we quickly ask you to wrap up for us on the legend? Who or what is the legend? And I'm asking out there, and I'm throwing it out because I know they're listening. I would prefer legacy. I would prefer the pillars on which this country have been set upon, established, developed in the name of legacy than in the creation of a legend. Could you tell us what is a legend at the end, at the very end?
At the very end, let me bring it up for you. And since you've given me the honor of closing, I'm closing this segment. I see Glenn is in the green room, and I'm going to Glenn, just give me a thumbs up if it's okay for me to bring you in. Great. I want to bring you in, Glenn, and welcome this evening to the Marcy Week show. Rose has given me the honor and privilege of just closing off this section, but I cannot believe, Glenn, the total ludicrous expressions that I have heard with regards to the past of our political landscape in Barbados. But let me do what Rose has asked me to do, and that is to read the last slide. In that, as you can see it there on the screen, I trust you all can see it. It says there, and I'm quoting it: the Britannica Dictionary defines legend as someone who is famous and admired, usually because of their ability in a particular area. A legend is someone who leaves their mark by creating energizing ripples around them. A story from the past that is believed by many people but cannot be proven to be true. A famous or important person who is known for doing something extremely well.
So we see the difference between what? Legacy and legend. One, the Britannica Dictionary speaks to it as someone who creates a ripple. I don't want a ripple. I want when that person goes that we can see what they have done, that future generations can benefit from and can continue respectfully, not in a denigrating manner or dismissive manner as we would have heard from the platform. And I would also want to ask the question, what legacy is going to be left on by this prime minister? And the legacy will be what? Debt, debt, debt.
And more debt.
A loss of political will, voter apathy, a loss of democracy as we know it, and a loss of Barbadian identity. The Barbadian identity and psyche. That will be the legacy. I am feeling it. I am seeing it. And that person is still well and alive.
Yes,
And we would have seen the legacy that would have begun, and that we would benefit from through Errol Barrow, through Tom Adams, the legacy from Sir Grantley Adams, and the legacy from through Owen Arthur and Prime Minister Erskine
Sandiford and Frundle Stewart. Well, Rose, I will tell you this. I will tell you this.
See it. So I thank you very much for the opportunity to share. I just want to stimulate some discussion. I just want persons to understand that the aim is to create a legend and present the legend to the world more than leave a legacy that is sure and sustainable in our country, Barbados.
Thank you so very much, Rose. Don't go too far because we want to have a continued discussion later in the night. So I'm just going to rest you in the green room for a little bit because we are bringing. Oh, you want to? You okay? Well, Glenn, can we keep her here?
Put me in the green room. Yes,
I would be. I would get a little tired of staring at your face alone. After 5 minutes, so I would like some pleasant relief.
Thank you.
Well, Clyde, welcome.
Good night.
It is an unusual pleasure of mine to be dealing with Sunday nights, but Marcia is on Mike on the move duty in the island of Dominica, and she has asked me to manage tonight. Quite an honor to be among such esteemed individuals as yourself and Rose, and I understand Maxine will be joining us a little later. But let me step out of the way and give way to you. Good evening, sir. Welcome.
Thank you, and thanks for your warm welcome, and good night, Rose. It's a long time since we have interacted in person. It's remarkable how, without having discussed it with Rose's presentation segues perfectly and a little yours too, Ferdy, when you were dealing with the facts about the so-called lost decade, perfectly with my topic, which is spotting the light on wrong information in politics. Spotting the light on wrong information in politics. And because I like to, because of my training in social sciences and history, I try not to look at just an isolated incident, but try to give it context, history, try to make sense of it as to what it means fundamental to the society. Right, thank you. So I have been watching some trends in Barbados. And first of all, let me deal with what Rose said. I would have thought that Miss Liz Thompson, who I know used to fancy herself with the word Smith, would have known the difference between legacy and legend. I think you make a very clear distinction. First of all, you do not create your own your legacy is given to you by the future. Yes. Historians and people they review. You can contribute to being a legend, but you cannot contribute to your legacy. That is it's like somebody trying to clear a practicing politician say, I am a statesman. No. Society accords that title and distinction to you at the right time and the right circumstance. But I would have thought that when I heard Ms. Thompson pontificating, exaggerating about the Prime Minister Ms. Morley, they said, this cannot be the Ms. Morley I knew in cabinet for 9 years. Because, and I said, obviously, Ms. Thompson is believing her own propaganda. Because I would say, based on my knowledge of Ms. Morley for 9 years around cabinet table and many years thereafter, and her performance right now, she would talk about more a myth than a legend. Ms. Morley is more a myth than a legend. Ms. Morley is a creature of a carefully constructed over the years personality cult, and she's arrived at the right time with the technology and celebrity status where you can use. She's the first prime minister to have a full-time person who goes with them wherever they go, especially overseas, with cameras, etc. Charles Young, that post that we had, director of communication, was created and rearranged for him just so he can follow her. So she's a celebrity prime minister more than anything else. So do not get carried away. And I would have thought, what I remember most reluctantly and unfortunately about Ms. Thompson's speech that night, it was the first time we listened to her in a long time, because after she made a speech in Queen's Park before the 2018 election, in which she vilified all the previous leaders and their sex lives in Queen's Park, I thought she was an embarrassment. I don't really pay her much attention. But then when I listened, I thought I listened to her, what was it, Folkestone? And she made some memorable things. Reference, she talked about Miss Du-Jones and her origins in St. Lucia. She made some very snide and offensive. And I'm surprised that one woman could, if that were a man saying that, he probably would have been castigated by the feminists and the Barbados women's misogynists. And they all pick the teeth. Not one word when she talked about, she doesn't know why when she alleged, no proof, she alleged that Miss Du-Jones is always in solutions going to get top-ups. But then she went and talked about the candidate Chad Blackman. She like a big belly man. She had a big belly man. Those people in the audience who had a big man put their hand in the air, and a big belly man. I had a big belly man, I tell you, real good. This is what she's. So you understand why you no longer choose.
Just a minute, Glenn. Please, are you telling me that what you have just said, our Prime Minister spoke, or Thompson?
That was Thompson.
She spoke that from the platform
at Folkestone.
And that is recorded on YouTube for time and eternity.
Of course.
Oh my God.
So she's in a special class by herself. But let me get back to my topic: spotting the light on wrong information policy. First of all, I like that. I like that song very much. I think it's the best early song to come out in a long time. And although I think the classic's best song ever is Tell Them Calypsonians back in 1986. But this one is good. And what I like about it is not only the lyrics of the song, but there's some Bajanisms. I don't know if you picked up Balaka, 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 Balaka.
Yes.
And then you talk about Bozi. I mean, those things enhance and embellish and give it a Barbadian touch that you cannot get out of Trinidad, which we've been aping
That's
for so
right.
long.
That's right.
Right.
That's
So I
right.
want to commend him for even for those minor but meaningful inputs in that regard. My topic, having been a lifelong student and observer of international relations, local politics, human affairs, there's certainly that catch my eye. One of these things is that wrong information nowadays, we call it disinformation and misinformation. That is the language of this current era and technological era. Disinformation, misinformation sometimes erroneously mistakenly said or done. That a mistake. But if it's this, which is deliberate, a deliberate misleading, that's the contrast between the two. So when I listen to when the reason why I listen to is that one of my regrets is that Barbie, particularly leaders Grant Lee Adams, Gordon Cummings, Al Barra, Tom Adams, Bruce St. John, none of them has written their memoirs. None of them have written autobiographies. So you do while we hear of their deeds and misdeeds, their achievements, etc., their actions and statements, we do not get that inner explanation and context. Why I did this, why I said what I mean. So what we therefore have to rely is on a lot of anecdotal evidence. And we still have a very largely oral tradition in Barbados, particularly where politics, because like I said, a lot of people have not written even there are very few good memoirs. I mean, so autobiographies on people. There's some very superficial ones. So therefore, we have to rely on other persons' report to speak what they hear, what they felt, what they believe, what they think they heard. And as you know, people hear things and remember things selectively based on their own thinking, their prejudices, what they want to remember, etc. So it is very different. It's very different, therefore, something to give true credence to what is said about these persons when you hear the word of mouth and anecdotal. And doing that, people often distort either deliberately or selective or just because of the way they do it. And this is quite unlike the developing country, where North America particularly, where people write books on politicians and figures every day. I mean, hundreds now every year, right? So they have, and they do them, and they have to take their subject of public scrutiny and fact checking. They're under the analysis and criticism of other rights, etc. So it has to be done on a certain level to pass the taste and smelling test. We suffer from that badly, and as a result, I've often, because of this paucity on authoritative information from leaders of their own actions and beliefs and policies and conclusions, etc. I often wish that we were indulgent in what is known as psychohistory, and that is what a definition of psychohistory. You can read it differently for example, your projection and your thing has more authority than me. Like Rose, I concede that. So go right ahead. Definition of psychohistory. I'm not hearing you. I'm not hearing you. Not hearing you.
Yeah, I had muted myself to prevent any external noises.
Start over.
Yeah, that's fine. A branch of social science that analyzes human behavior through a combination of other social sciences, including psychoanalysis. It focuses on understanding the unconscious factors that influence and determine individual actions, including the role of childhood experiences and socialization. Wow.
So that is psychology. And it's becoming, so it evolves like the other social science, psychology, social psychology, psychoanalysis, all those factors. So you're trying to determine not only what the person, but why and how, and for what reason, to understand the person. The other leaders hopefully will learn from their thinking and behavior, etc. So we are, and therefore also there was some statements on the Marcel so that pointed me in this direction tonight. I want had to do with the so-called lost decade that you spoke about tonight, Ferdy. And I think in this regard, the DLP owes a great deal to you and other persons who have mentioned it. It's been mentioned on the show, but particularly Adrian Hines, who was very strong positive presentation a few nights ago.
Fantastic.
Right?
He was absolutely fantastic.
Right, and that lost decade. I think with the DLP has allowed the opponents to determine to define and construct its narrative.
Yes,
they have not resisted.
Yes. I agree with you.
Hopefully, this is these first signs of a strong comeback to correct the information, because you just want to give the facts, the information, and not be led by the myths and the distortion, the misinformation and the disinformation deliberately constructed. So I think that has been done, and but it has to be continued relentlessly. And the reason why I'm advocating it to the Democratic Party, because when I was with the DLP, we also had a problem. We also decided that the DLP had claimed that Mr. Barr introduced free secondary education in Barbados, and the record did not say that. The record that he expanded it because Grantley Adams, outside Grantley Adams in his time, built Parkinson, West St. Joyce, no Grantley Adams. The other one is in Philip, Princess Margaret, St. Leonard's Boys, St. Leonard's Girls. Those were secondary school. They call them comprehensive or new, because it was a different form of secondary education to introduce other skills and whatnot. So that was the beginning of the expansion. By then, Mr. Barr came. Along with that came the Barbados Institute, the Evening Institute, and the Technical Institute, which brought. So along with that, those came. Mr. Barr, that was done in the 50s. Mr. Barr won the government in December 61. And then in January 62, I think it was introduced free secondary education. So he took what was there and made it universal in the same way that Grantley Adams removed the qualifications for voting and made it universal by being 21. That is the only qualification that your school would want. You were in a secondary school, it was free, tax paid for it. So and we decided among ourselves that we have to start changing the narrative. And we start saying that and bit by bit as caught on, so that fewer and fewer people who are nowadays say it with as great certainty, because we then say we refuse to concede this territory to them, when in truth and in fact it was not exactly true. We should set the records straight. So I think the DLP has some work to do, and that should be, because if they do that, they have to deal with this lost decade sensational invention. The facts don't show it, right? But if they drink and believe in their enemy's own propaganda, they will all be a victim to it, right? So, but I think that this misinformation also has another set of information I heard during our presentation. I think it might also be during the presentation, Mr. Hines. Oh, Mr. Hines was also talking about we made some statements about Don Blackman and Sir Hilary Beckles, to the extent that these are persons, because of the plantocracy and the white business interests, etc., that they railed against, they had to flee Barbados. But and that Professor Beck, Sir Hilary Beck, is now in Jamaica, but Sir Hilary came back to the Caribbean, taught first at Jamaica, came to Barbados, lectured, etc., rose through the ranks and became principal of KFL. And then he was promoted to, Pro Vice Chancellor, which required his moving to Jamaica. So it's not fair for the record. I said, I'm trying to correct the record. I'm trying to give, because otherwise these things fall into myths and misperception, and lies are told, and they take on their own truth, because nobody conquers them with the fact. So he ended up in Jamaica, not because of his offended the status quo in Barbados and the powers that be chased him about. That was a promotion for him in Jamaica. And I remember him very well, because when he came back to Barbados, and I was then managing editor of the New Basic magazine. I remember I organized a full interview with him, and the headline on the cover was Barbados' biggest radical. So it is not to say or to give the impression that he was run out of Barbados. The same thing applies to Don Blackman. Don Blackman left Barbados, having created, and it's not true to say that he left Barbados because the White Shadows and their conspirators and colleagues and cohorts in the BIP ran him, put pressure on me, left Barbados, someone. If I can give it, and I'm correcting the record because I was there. I was there at government course when he got fired by Tom Adams. I remember it well because this is Don Blackman. I think he was Minister of Transport and Works or something like that. It was the longest cabinet meeting that lasted almost 11 o'clock.
Wow.
All right. And he, because when he had his other colleagues had become very dissatisfied with the way a lot of the services, roads and things were affecting his constituency. It is said that all the roads, even if people pig pens and backyards were paved and Barbary Green, and other constituencies were suffering. So there was a great deal of dissatisfaction among his colleagues. So when he was being questioned and challenged, not a single person rose to defend. So he was fired. He went back. Mr. Barr said he never left the party. So to say then that the White Shadow, that was not the reason of that. That had nothing to do with it. And remember the famous case with Cole Williams, when he awarded the contract for the building of the highway to Mr. Ray Side, and Mr. Williams took him to court, the Administrative Review Act, and won the case. So, and he left Barbados. He went to Trinidad. He got married in Trinidad, and then he went into St. Kitts, and he was into projects, building hotels and hospitals and what. So it is wrong, and so I can only go. I feel I have a moral responsibility as a Barbadian, as one who's been part of the political process, as a student of affairs, one who loves Barbados dearly, to where possible try to correct any misinformation that persons through innocence or just repeating what they've been told had perpetrated, and that is why I chose. So as part of my national duty, I try to tell people that I know, and so that other persons, other future persons would know the context in which these things happen. Otherwise, it begins to give people a distorted picture of politics and politicians. Politics are already regarded as a very nasty activity, and so therefore, when persons, for whatever reason, deliberately or unknowingly, add to that, it makes it harder for persons to get in. For young, progressive people who want to make a contribution, they are deterred by these stories, which are not always rooted in fact and water. So I thought I would set the record. Another one too was another one thing is I remember the question of red as a color in politics. Red as a color in politics dates back to a series of revolutions and uprisings in Europe between 1838 and 1840, between January 1848 and October 1849. We have some 50 countries across Europe. The young people rose. Remember hearing about the Arab Spring? Well, that was the equivalent of the Arab Spring, and so red became from then on the symbol of workers and workers' union, and because of most of the original political parties in Barbados, in the Caribbean, came out of the democratic socialism or social democracy, where the government's role is to intervene on behalf of the workers, the public, etc., to play an activist role in it. Red, especially, has and most of the political parties came out of trade unions. That has been adopted as the standard, as the international color for red on Labor Day, Workers' Day, etc. So that is really the history. and the Barbados Labour Party, having been the first mass party in Barbados in 1938, etc., and the Eastern Caribbean, adopted red because of its socialist democratic sort of background, and that's the context in which red has become not only a party or a symbol of parties, but also is related to their so-called philosophical attachment to the plight and the interest of the workers. You have the Barbados Labour Party, you had the Democratic Labour Party, but obviously because the Democratic Labour Party came out of the Barbados Labour Party in 1938, they cannot have, they need their own image, their own symbol, their own. That is why each they have their own colors that present their own symbol. So I thought I would have to put some of those things in context. There's a lot more that can be said, but I thought those are the current things that had to be said. But also, I cannot help but note the 3 deadlines. You're talking about last decade. You're talking about this one is more than this present government is a lost administration. A simple thing as giving $300 so-called solidarity allowance. I call it a national bribery, a national bribe, act of bribery. Even though they carefully constructed to coincide with the 21st of May, the by-election in St. James North. The first deadline it gave was the 30th. For those who have to apply to get it, they gave a deadline of 30th of May. That was extended to the 30th of June. And now the third one I heard on Friday, the 30th of July. So what it means, and I found it quite demeaning that in this day and age with all the technology and all the brains supposed operating the bosom, that they cannot find a more dignified and significant way for persons to receive that grant rather than stand in the hot sun, the broiling sun, as the bear said, the boiling sun. I think, of course, it reminds me too of Miss Motley's grandfather. I know him because I dealt with him as a reporter, and I know it. I saw him in action in the city council dealing with people, so I know that what he speaks. No way had to tell me his story, and to have people go through this is a further reflection of not having brought through. I thought by now, having spent 9 years within cabinet, she would have gone on for another 5 years after me, and then been a prime minister for 7 years. I thought she would learn something, how to plan, from beginning to end, execute, get your goals. Only used to talk about clarity of purpose, certainty of outcome. But there's clear. I think she's incapable of that clear. She's muddled. She wants something done in a hurry. How could you have three deadlines? 3 deadlines. You would know the capacity if you had thought what it was be the capacity of the LAS to do it, to produce these checks or whatever. All that would have been big. You could have this could have been meant to coincide with back to school and let people have it in a proper way, systematic structure. But to have people for 3 months, virtually 3 months, stand out in the sun and rain to get, I think it is unbecoming, and the government ought to be ashamed of itself. Good idea. I'm sure people love the money, but they have to treat people with respect and dignity. And one last thing, I see there's been some comment about the abuse, the misuse of the children of St. James North for being forced to go to school
at the Parliament.
At Parliament.
Yeah.
Now, normally that was a role normally accorded to the BLP supporters, the come in their throngs in their red. I would see them prefer, you would have seen them. That is the role of the senior, the adults in the party. But to have schools pick up those disturb, even though they were not the entire school, but disturb the schooling, the education of those children, just to come and wave some party colors. I thought again it was very dismaying. It was wrong. It should not have been done. Miss Morley, who was a former Minister of Education, should have known better. Those who planned the campaign should have thought better. Should not just seek to promote their interests, even in the minds of children who cannot vote yet. They were so determined to win every vote possible. But then I remember that in 1995, when Edwin Yearwood won the first I don't expect the crop competition, Voice in my head, and I think over that, those were the songs. Thereafter, Miss Morley, who was Minister of Education and Culture then, shut down the secondary schools of Barbados and made the children go to the gymnasium to interact with Edwin. Edwin, as good a talent as he is, I think he's a good talent, had never sung, as far as my knowledge, sung or done anything to do with education. So you take him as an example of reading or writing and education, or literacy. He went up there as a champion of literacy. It was the most bizarre, one of the most bizarre decisions early I saw her make. And today, and this reminded me of that. You only have the bizarre thinking that we think that it's all right to shut down school because a man won a competition in Calypso. It did not relate to the education of the children. The songs were about education and the benefits of education, literacy, reading, writing, arithmetic, school behavior. They were not about that. I thought they were grossly misplaced. I'm around in my time, sir, and otherwise,
you're a couple of minutes over, but I'm watching for Maxine's arrival. I'm not seeing her in the green room as yet, so I can give you a couple more minutes.
Okay, I just want to say all this therefore fits into there's a concept known as triumphalism. Triumphalism. Triumphalism, where you celebrate. It's defined as an attitude of smug and boastful pride in one's own victory and success, often implying superiority over others. I'll repeat it: triumphalism. An attitude of smug and boastful pride in one's own victory and success, often implying superiority over others. So what all this carrying on that you've seen in the BLP then over child blabbing, it was that triumphalism that would have led that thinking to have put those children out of school to do that, to subject them to that experience. That I understand that they say celebrated. Apparently there was a celebration. I would have sent you you would have seen a flyer for the. They had a celebration on Saturday.
Yes, I saw that flyer.
Right, celebrating the big man or something like that. So they said a week after, they're still celebrating fete and food and frolic, all part of this. And the Prime Minister has a tendency, if she could do it, to go overboard on things, be excessive, rather than suffer for it. So you go all out. I believe if Ms. Dujon could only have gotten 10 votes, she would be elected, because she must not. The Prime must not is one, and I've, from my personal interactions here, operate and know how she thinks. In these kind of adversarial situations against the adversary, she must win and win big each and every time. It's part of the alpha female, part of the alpha persona, where you're tough, strong, arrogant, dominate, win every time, every day, and everything with everybody. That is the nature of this leadership we're saying. So if you put it in that context, then that will help you understand even more why they indulge in, why they make all these T-shirts and the placards and the posters and music, because they got the money. And it's not only the money, it's the attitude towards campaigning that the Prime Minister has brought to the BLP in a way that and one day we must talk about. There's something in the Election Controversies and Offences Act that talks about treating, TREATING. So what you see with all these T-shirts and whatnot are considered part of treating, cajoling, manipulating, inducing people to vote for you, and it's forbidden. And we must look at that one day, some night, and get a lawyer. We can go through it ourselves and get a lawyer to explain what it means in the actual context. But I think a lot of the things that we see being done in politics, they actually probably offend that act, but nobody has challenged it, because everybody wants to be in the game in the same way too. But I know, for example, that Tom Adams was very strong on. He had a strong limitation on T-shirts. That is why you do not see a T-shirt saying vote this person or vote that party. You have the symbols of X, etc., a dash, because all those are part of the treating. And I think by the time when we see this upsurge of money, I think in politics, with no accounting for it, no transparency, you don't know the source, you know the core, you don't know the negotiations for it, to the detriment of the country. I think we have to start looking at treating and all the other political activities in campaigning to bring a halt to it, because that is all part of the anti-corruption drive that must be undertaken in the country.
Well, you see, again, Glenn, we have to bring about change. There has got to be a dramatic change in how we do politics in Barbados. While how we function before served us in its context. I mean, even from my standpoint as a minister, you know, we used to have things that I'm sure you all are all familiar with called crusades, you know, and we had these big meetings and so on. And they serve their time, but within the context of current experience in our global and local environments, one has to examine if that's the effective way of going about it in the future. So there needs to be a reassessment of how we do politics in Barbados. I feel very strongly on certain matters with regards to that. But I will say though, Glenn, I just have one quick comment to make because I've been checking the chat while we've been going through, and you remember Adrian was on a couple nights ago,
Right.
and he did treat, and you did mention it. He did treat to this matter that you just referred to, in terms of the two gentlemen you spoke of, and he just wanted to clarify the fact that he didn't actually say that they were dismissed, but that they left. They chose to leave because they were frustrated. I was just trying to find the comment here, you know, in terms of that particular thing. So I just wanted to clarify that aspect in terms of what we were sharing a little earlier. But you know, the thing about it is though that when we look at a lot of what is being propagated today, and you know, I must tell you the truth, Glenn, that I have grown significantly intolerant to indecency. You know, my mother taught me to be decent. You know, and I've tried my best over the years to be as decent as I possibly can be, because of my mother's training. So there's certain things that I simply would not say on a political platform or in a public environment or from a pulpit, or certain things, you know, I just simply would not engage, because that's what my mother taught me. You know, she taught me the respect, and you know, it was ludicrous, to be honest with you, to hear the Barbados Labour Party criticizing Mr. Thorne about how he treated two women, and then listen to the way that they spoke about Miss Duchamp. And I thought it was so hypocritical and disingenuous. I mean, it's like the pot calling the kettle black. You know, you are speaking to how they speak to their women and how they treat their women, but here you are demonstrating the exact attitude that you're being critical of. You know, and I thought that was really disrespectful.
In Spooner's Hill, we would say, you spit up in the air and it fall back in your face.
It fall back in your face.
Right.
You know,
right.
and I watched the night, and I see Maxine is in the green room. Let me just make sure I get a little thumbs up from her. I know I can see your teeth when you smile. So it's so nice to have you. I'm going to bring her writing. Let me see how you do this thing again. Let me make sure I get it done. Welcome and good evening, Maxine. I nearly call you Marcia. Good evening, Maxine. You're muted, so you'll have to
Yes.
unmute your
Can you
mic.
hear me now?
Yes, I
Can you?
can hear you. Good
Well, good
evening and
evening to
welcome to the
you and to
show.
Rose and to
Good
Glenn.
Good
night.
night. Good
I
night.
I've been
I
enjoying the show. I've been
I
listening
have
from the beginning.
I hope
well,
you've been
I am
enjoying
among
it.
Yes,
I am
very much
among
so.
some very, what is the word, auspicious company? Is that
Or,
what they
or,
say?
or suspicious.
I
Maybe
tell
so.
you,
They
Liz
describe us as
Thompson would have said,
suspicious.
suspicious.
you know, I
But
don't
she's
often
also,
get.
based on what you were saying, I suspect I will label her as suspect. But anyhow, we'll let that be.
You know, I don't often get to be in the midst of all of you, and I must say that it was an unexpected pleasure of mine, an honor of mine to receive the request from Marcia to be here tonight. And I asked her, I said, so who are going to be the guests? And she frightened me. And she told me, Glyne, Maxine, and Rose. I said, oh my Lord. But
Well,
I'm sure you've been listening. And,
very much so. Very much
I
so.
will say this, that on the night, Glyne, Maxine, and Rose, of the elections, and I was going through the different medias to see what was being said, and I was absolutely disgusted with Liz Thompson's conduct. I found, in terms of setting an example, the way that she spoke to and carried on the young lady that represented the Democratic Labour Party, was, in my view, this is my opinion, highly disrespectful of her compatriot as a woman, and hypocritical in her allegations against the opposition. Um, I have had to face discussions where I have women present and men present, and they don't agree with me. I have board meetings, and I've always tried, even here tonight, I've always tried to maintain civility, and I believe that we can disagree agreeably. And I have had to sit with people, fundamentally, even as a minister. I know some ministers probably would not admit this, but I have had to sit with people I don't like, because I have to depend on the Lord Jesus and the Holy Spirit to get me to love them. Because apart from the two of them, I think I love a whole set of people that can tell you that. But I thank God for the Holy Ghost. I don't know how many people believe in him, but I do. I thank God for the Holy Spirit, who gives me the ability to do what I cannot do. And so I've tried over the years to be as civil as I can be. And I want to encourage all of us who are on the show tonight, in terms of your comments, and even when you call in, I think it was the one comment I've heard Michelle Obama make that I have repeated over and over: when they go low, we go high. And I embrace that. I endorse that sentiment completely. So let me welcome you, Maxine.
Thank
And I
you.
know you have a number of things to share with us. We have already had, as you have been listening, some interesting contributions by Rose, looking back over the legacy and the legend aspect of the country. Again, here with Glyne, setting the record straight in terms of wanting to dismiss the attitude of the administration, wanted to dismiss all that has gone before us, if all of a sudden everything now begins with the current prime minister. And so let me make way for you to contribute in terms of what you would like to share with us
Well,
tonight.
thanks a lot. And I'm not sure if you were able to pull up the presentation, but I want to try to link what I'm going to talk about. My presentation, it's called Implementation, Failures, and Financial Implications. Now, I did something this afternoon. I decided to use my computer, and so the presentation that I will share with you, a lot of the information was generated by AI, Glenn. So rather than sit down and try to create a whole set of points, I said, let me see what this throws if I put a certain topic in, and it came up, and it saved me a lot of time. But I want to link that whole notion of implementation with this whole the entire question about legend and legacy. And at the end of the day, when we talk about what creates a legend, what helps to shape some individual or individuals that we can, whether they are legends in cricket. If you think in terms of cricket, we can think of the performance of the world's greatest cricketer. I don't know that we've identified somebody greater than Sir Garfield Sobers yet. You lady and gentlemen can tell me if that's the case, but Glenn, I don't think so.
No, thank God.
So we have a legend in Sir Garfield. And when we think about the legacy of him his legacy and that of his contemporaries in terms of their performance in cricket, it has to do with their ability to put in place what they understood was required of them as a cricketer, as individuals, and as a team. And so when we hear, and I heard you speak about and shared, and Rose shared extracts from the comments of Liz Thompson, and I'm not going to spend time talking about her. All I can say to her is I trust that her studies in theology will bring a greater level of humanity and dignity to her behavior.
And humility.
And humility as well, because it is. But then again, Pastor, you know that a church is a place for sick souls. So, it's a hospital for sick souls. So
Yes.
we all go in
Oh,
there.
dear.
We all
dear.
go in there. I mean, I go to church. I was at church up to this morning, and I would tell you that we are all seeking healing or growth or
Yes,
change
you're
and
right.
betterment, But
You're right.
I really think that, for somebody who preaches literally and figuratively the importance of women and so on, to behave in her characteristic style is shameful. This is a young,
absolutely,
irrespective of what. And then, a lot of what you're saying is exaggerated and so on. But I'm not going to waste my time going over what you've said. It just says that this is a case study in what not to do. And I would say to all young politicians, particularly young women, when you look at that, pick from those you see around you the positives and discard the negatives. And so you don't want to be cantankerous. That was the word, Glenn, that was used.
Cantankerous.
And that wasn't my word. It was one of your bosses who.
That was attributed to Miss Thompson. That's public record.
It is a public record. So I think that when we start to talk about legacy, one of the failings, and I'm going to speak in general terms in my presentation, but I look at it within the context of an administration that is now in office. And let me say hello to our many listeners. I'm not sure how many we have online right now, Pastor.
Well, I am. Let me see here, because
so I hope that you can like and share.
Yes, please.
I can tell you that everywhere I go, up to this morning, somebody was telling me that, I was parking my car at a business place this afternoon, rather. It was afternoon, not morning. And the person was saying to me, well, I watched the show because I had not seen the lady for many years. We actually worked in the same place at one point. And she said, but I see you all the time. And, this is where she sees us. So if you're seeing me here, I wouldn't call your name publicly, but have a good evening. And
well, we're up to 1,013. I'm seeing here at the moment. Beautiful. Live. I'm seeing.
So for those persons, YouTube, like and share.
Yes, please.
Okay, like and share. Share in particular, like it, because I think it is important. These folk in front of me put a lot of work. I admitted that my presentation draws in part from an AI search that I did, but I can tell you, Glenn and Rose and Pastor Ferdinand, we do a lot of research. We don't come and talk from the top of our heads. But the point I'm making is that when we start to talk about legacy and legends, we also have to look at what is happening with our ability to successfully implement projects. And I think that one of the challenges that this administration in particular faces is a continuous failure to achieve significant success in terms of efficiency and effectiveness of implementation of many projects. And I'm gonna give some examples, and then if we have the presentation, we can pull it up. We've sat here and we've dissected issues related to the whole project, housing. We've looked at that. We've talked about agriculture. I heard your comment, Pastor Ferdinand, about the $1 billion in rum exports. Now, maybe we can bottle seawater and call it rum. I don't know. That's if you do that, we can or we can turn seawater into rum. I don't know.
I mean, wait, well, hold on a minute. Listen, my name is Ferdinand. My name is Ferdinand. My name is not Jesus.
Okay.
He's the only person I know of that I can recall in history that can change one element into
It's
the
another.
next. And I have not reached that level as yet. So,
I thought you were telling me don't call you pastor.
no,
But
no,
no,
no, no, no, no,
in all
no. You can
seriousness,
just
part of the challenge we have is that there comes a time when pronouncements have to be translated into tangible, implementable projects.
yes, yes.
Glenn used a couple phrases as I was listening and getting ready to come on the show. Some what is it, of certainty,
Clarity of purpose,
clarity of purpose,
certainty of outcome.
certainty of outcome. And
Those are
those are
two
critical
goals,
elements.
right?
And I would say there are two critical elements in successful implementation.
That's right.
And I think that, in fact, as I listened to you, I smiled because I said perhaps that explains why, under the watch of Prime Minister Mia Mottley, we are seeing so many starts and stops. Go forward, was it one step forward and enough steps back? I changed the lyrics a little bit. And I'm, in all seriousness, I mean, if we think of we heard of issues in terms of the COVID-19 vaccine scandal, that did not look good in terms of Barbados. We look at the housing issue of hope. We look at another housing issue, the issue of the emergency houses that were supposed to be, today is the beginning of hurricane season. And that, for me, makes that particular one an interesting one, because up to now, I have not seen any evidence to tell me that there has been significant, or the majority of houses that were supposed to be fixed, that were emergency. Remember, they were going to China for houses because they couldn't deliver fast enough, sourcing houses from or materials from the region. And so that was a problem. But what I wanted to do was just to share some thoughts in general terms, because when we start to talk about implementation and we hear the expression implementation deficit, I think that in looking at that, we don't just use the word, but we understand what it is. We have to ask why it happens and what can be done. And I think that part of the problem that we realize is that in many instances, we have a situation where, and I focus on government, we can look at it within the context of other organizations, the private sector or whatever, but we are talking about the government, and this show is targeted to understanding and articulating voices of the opposition, persons who, the loyal opposition, as this show has become. So are you able to show the
I'm still working on it. I'm still
okay, no
working
problem.
on it.
Well, I would continue.
You go ahead. You go ahead. Yeah.
So basically, as I said, the term implementation deficit is often heard in relation to the failure of the government to successfully implement various projects and programs. And in fact, to be honest, it is not only a situation we face in Barbados. We hear it across the region. Glenn, like myself, we would have sat at meetings of officials and ministers of CARICOM, and we often heard, challenges with implementation, delays, deferrals, failures, whatever the case may be. And as I said, we need to ask ourselves why. And basically, to expand on that, I would say, and this is some of the information I generated and chose to include, an implementation deficit, and I focus, in all fairness, beyond Barbados, in developing countries refers to the gap between well-intentioned development policies and their successful execution. And as you know, our focus is on not only growing this economy, but achieving levels of development. I draw a distinction between growth and development. And so the shortfall between, what is hoped for, what is contemplated with a project, can hinder progress and limit the benefits or the benefits of development programs. So the reality is, and we see it more and more, that countries like ours often face challenges in translating policy plans into action because of a number of factors. And of course, we can talk about limited resources, we can talk about weak institutions, we can talk about lack of capacity to manage complex projects. Now, in the context of Barbados, I want to say something about that because, and of course, I typed it in bold. If you had the presentation, you will see I had the word corruption there as well. Now, we sometimes say that we don't have the capacity, but if I think in terms, I recently met a gentleman who works with MTW, or worked. He might be retired, but the gentleman was bemoaning the fact that we continue to talk about all the problems we have on the road, potholes and poor quality roads and so on. And he said when he was associated with the organization very recently, until very recently, they had something called a pothole mender or patch, a piece of equipment that is supposed to efficiently mend potholes. And you have, because I believe the people still work with MTW, a team of workers who are supposed to specialize in doing that. But from what I was told, that piece of equipment is sitting idle. And it is sitting idle, and anybody, the minister, the chief technical officer, or whoever is in charge, can correct me and tell me if this is the case, that it is sitting there because it probably needs some part that is not overly expensive. Thanks a lot. It is not overly expensive, and you can go down to about the third slide. Okay, right. And this is what I was talking about, looking at and I chose a nice background because I was thinking of the sea and sunsets, you see. So I went in search of a PowerPoint slide background that would capture for us some of the sites that we may see from time to time. So I hope you guys appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Very artistic.
Especially with all the African dust coming in.
I can tell you that's where you get those colors.
Yes, beautiful.
Absolutely, that's where you get those colors. I will explain to y'all one of these days why sunsets. I'm so fascinated with sunsets at this point in my life. If we have time tonight, I'll tell you. And so in looking, I'm back to MTW. We can't say that we don't have the capacity because we have equipment, we have personnel. But from what I'm told, these people are not being deployed to do that. So they still have to be paid. But they're probably, I think what's happening is that the work may be contracted out to private entities and so on. And so these people may not be earning as much as they normally would do because I guess they also get overtime if there was a lot of work or whatever. But they're now being paid and not being deployed, So those are the kinds of things. Weak institutions. We have heard a lot about the reform of statutory corporations. I am not sure where we are with some of those because we have been promised that for the longest while. It was supposed to be part of the agreements with the International Monetary Fund. And I wait to see what is happening. The latest one we heard about is the planned merger of the rural and urban development corporations, and so the next slide talks about what really, what are we talking about when we talk about an implementation deficit? And basically what I am saying here is that it occurs when well-designed development policies and projects, and I would also say when poorly designed, because they're not only deficits, sometimes when things are badly designed, they cannot be properly implemented. And if you think of the projects around you, I believe that the decision I use the examples we talk about, that whole emergency housing program where they were supposed to introduce these imported houses from China as something that would get here quickly. The whole thing was not properly conceptualized or thought out, because if you were thinking about the logistical challenges that we were facing post-COVID pandemic, why would you expect that you can probably get housing from China to Barbados quicker than you can get her a lumber from either Belize, Guyana, or Suriname, which is next door. Especially where a lot of the houses damaged were probably wooden houses in the first instance, you know. So in terms of trying to understand that, this is what we are talking about. And I want people, when the next slide talks about some of the root causes, and I want people to understand what are some of the causes of this so-called implementation deficit. Because if you look, we mentioned limited resources. Again, I would say that applies sometimes, but oftentimes it is not about limited resources. It is about the misuse of resources, the failure to properly allocate resources. And I await the process, as the exercise has not ended yet, but we have spoken here about the allocation of funds to the gathering exercise. It's a year-long event, but I can tell you that if you compare the amounts of the millions of dollars allocated to that and contrast it with the resources that would have been made available to the celebration of the 50th anniversary of independence, which was a year-long activity, you will see the different use of resources, the different outcomes. So sometimes the resources may, in fact, be overall limited, and monies allocated to projects may be better used. We had some discussions here, Glenn and Ferdy and and Rose, about the $300
Right.
fund. Now,
Simple project.
Exactly. And the question you ask is, why would you give everybody $300? Including many people for whom $300 is not necessary, in a situation where you have, as Glenn said, you could do it during school time. And in fact, you should perhaps have said, if you're going to refund this money, not because I call it refund because it's coming from somewhere, from some pot of money belonging to taxpayers. If you're going to distribute that money, do it to people who need it and put the rest to some very urgent need. We hear, we hear about the hospital, limited financial resources, and they've made funds available to the hospital through a levy, but we don't get proper reports. We don't know at the end of the day, given the ongoing problems, what are the implementation failures at the hospital. Then, of course, beyond another cause, as it says here, is weak institutions, poor governance, corruption, and weak administrative structures. Recall the arrangements that were made at the hospital. You had a board of directors, and then you had a CEO, and for some reason, the Prime Minister, I would have to say, because I don't think it was a decision of the Minister of Health, decided to put in place, and it was an executive director. That was the title, or something equivalent to an executive director, where you had somebody who would normally have sat on the board. In other words, you are merging two positions: head of board and head of what I would call the CEO position. Lack of capacity, insufficient trained personnel, expertise and technical skills within government and other implementing agencies. And one of the concerns, I would say, when we start to look at this administration, and I'm doing this in broad terms, and again, I just want to remind those listening that as we talk about this, when you see something not working well in Barbados, or people saying that we suffer from an implementation deficit, my question is, why? What are the explanations for that? What can we or ought we to do differently? So we talk about lack of capacity. And one of the areas that concern me, colleagues, about what I see happening in government today is that we have what I call parallel structures being put in place, which take the role of public officers. I think I heard Glenn refer to an individual who travels with the Prime Minister you know, and
Charles
government information
Young, yeah,
service.
Charles Young.
Precisely. So he traveled.
Guest paid for the public person called his name Charles Young.
Charles Jung.
Jung.
Jung, Jung,
Yeah.
right. Now, he will travel with the Prime Minister. During my years as a minister, officers of the Government Information Service, if there was coverage by Barbados, would have gone. So you now have a parallel structure because, as far as I know, he is not, strictly speaking, part of the public service. Whether he's paid for the public purse or not, I am not, you know, he is not part of the public service as yet. Coordination challenges, lack of coordination between different government agencies, departments, and stakeholders can lead to duplication of effort, and ineffective implementation. GIS, I just spoke about that. At many of the, an interesting organization, and you would have heard me touch it on this from time to time, and I've heard one commentator on a call-in program trying to explain it or justify it. And I speak specifically, well, the person did speak specifically of an agency, but I will speak of one. The Barbados Investment and Development Corporation, now called Export Barbados. Based on what I've been observing and hearing, including from comments, you know, on some of these programs, we have an agency that has a complement of staff, and then they have a whole number of consultants. But at the end of the day, I am still trying to find out, as an agency responsible for a critical or having major responsibility for a critical part of our economy, that is manufacturing and so on, I am not seeing results. I'm not hearing of significant increases in exports. I'm not hearing of significant numbers of new entrepreneurs getting their businesses off the ground and so on. In fact, coming up very soon is a trade and was it TIE that used to be BMX, is now called TIE, TIE, Trade, Investment and something exhibition. Last year it was not quite what BMX used to be. So I would expect that as we talk about all of these innovations and changes, that we would see the kinds of improvements and successes, impacts that would say that these organizations say that they are making significant, I was going to say revolutionary change, but significant change, seem in fact to be talking but not delivering. So, you know, so we look at these things and so we could actually look, I think we've gone ahead to look at some of the consequences because of implementation. So before we get to addressing it, we talk about the wasted resources, we're talking about public disillusionment. And in a country like Barbados, we can't afford to scoff at $60 million not being accounted for in a whole project. We cannot afford to have more than a decade later, $34 million in grant funding made available to the University of West Indies through government agreements with the government of China, not fully utilized or not utilized to the point where we can see outputs. And I, you know, you can look at all of those things. You mentioned earlier, Ferdy, when you were looking at this so-called, I don't even use the word, when you were demonstrating the achievements of the last administration, I don't talk about any negatives. I speak in positive terms, especially when the negatives applied our lives. But you talked about the policy in relation to renewable energy.
Yeah.
And we have a situation where we are pretty much at a standstill, but we are still hearing a lot of fancy talk about net zero this
Sure.
and carbon free this and that and the next thing. Where are we? So what happens? The public becomes disillusioned. You were
Yeah.
saying something, Ferdy?
Yeah, no, there are a couple of things that you said, Maxine, that really catch my attention. I've been saying this for the longest time. All saying that Reverend Dr. Holmes Williams, in one of his messages, spoke, I've never forgotten. When your outgo exceeds your income, your upkeep becomes your downfall. We are earning consistently, and I'm talking with people in the tourism sector concerning how Barbados earn.
I'm not hearing you.
You dropped out there, Freddie.
You dropped out? I think. Okay,
You're hearing me back
I'm
now?
hearing you now. Yes, yes, yes.
Okay. No, I was saying that the majority of the people who come to our country as tourists use credit cards. Am I correct?
Yes, as far as I know.
And does that not mean that the expenditure that they put here against their cards goes back to the credit card provider?
When you say goes back to them, well, I mean, it is here. It is accounted for on your account, because if you spend $200 with me at
on a
Visa,
Visa,
on a Visa
card,
they have to settle. Visa has to settle that with my bank for me, or wherever I look,
Right.
I deposit that.
That's right.
I record that transaction.
right?
So it stays with me.
But that's the only income earner, because you were asking just now, you were stating just now about revenues generated for the country. Would I be correct? I heard you mention something about that, or down that line.
How about
I hope.
international business?
Yeah, what is earning revenues for Barbados?
Well,
What is bringing income?
Now that you've raised an important point. The reality is that when we look at, there are two things we have to look at: the foreign exchange that is generated, because we spend so much foreign currency to import, whether it is
yes.
inputs to even say manufacturing,
Yeah.
imports to keep the tourism sector alive, imports of food, equipment,
Yeah.
furnishings, fixtures, you name it. Everything, I mean, for the most part, we import so much. So in order to do that, or to be able to...
But we've always done that, Maxine.
Uh-huh.
That is the history of Barbados. Because the nature of Barbados, the size of it, apart from sugar and some other stuff, we've mostly always imported most of what we use.
Yeah, but
that's why you have to earn it.
That's exactly the same. But what we've been able to do, and what is going to be required, is the ability to earn the foreign exchange to do that. Now, what is happening?
Yeah, exactly.
Is that we are relying more and more, as far as I'm concerned, as far as I can see, on tourism,
right.
and perhaps on a tourism base that is not expanding in sufficiently. And Glenn mentioned international business. I am still waiting to get some solid reports on what is happening with the international business sector. We have had some significant legislative changes and other regulatory changes, but nobody has sat us down and said these changes have taken place. Because remember, there were some taxation changes and so on, even classification of what constitutes. And I'm trying to keep it at basic level for the average Barbadian to understand. But there have been some significant changes on what constitutes an international business. There have been that's internally. There have also been changes internationally around the sector. And my question to the minister, to the senior officers in the public service, and to those players in the private sector involved in international business, where are we now in terms of the attractiveness of this, the level of activity in the business, the earnings? Because it used to earn significant.
And what are the plans? And what are the plans and the goals for the future? Because, Glenn, again, let you come right in a sec. Because, for the last several years, I'm no expert in this, Maxine. But I have traveled a lot between here and Grand Cayman in the last 7 years, since 2004. And I've traveled into St. Lucia, and I know people very well in the financial sector in St. Kitts Nevis, which is, I am told, one of the fastest expanding international business sectors in the Caribbean. And I've spoken directly with people who have moved their international business operations completely out of Barbados for a number of reasons. One has to do with service. One has to do with the red tape involved in having things done. One has to do with the time it takes to get things done. I mean, I've spoken with persons personally, on flights you're going up, or you're flying between Grand Cayman and the United States, and you're interacting with people. Some of them, I won't call their names, because I mean, they're no friends of mine. I just happen to meet the people, and their criticism has been that, and they've just moved their businesses out, and so I am just wondering what we have lost. Can somebody quantify what we have lost, and can somebody tell us what is the plan to recoup, or to improve, or increase, or attract persons within the context of that sector?
In fact, I want to say this because if you're talking because services are a big part of our economy, and service quality is critical. I saw something recently, and I'm going to look for it, and we can discuss it sometime. And one of I think these are probably exit surveys for for tourists leaving the country or whatever. But you know what keeps coming up as a problem?
I know you
Poor
might say.
service.
Yes,
Poor
yes.
service.
Sorry,
And
Glenn,
go
I'm gonna
ahead,
let you
go
come in.
ahead.
I can let
Yeah.
you come in a second, Glenn. But
Yes. Thank
Marcia,
you.
this is no joke. I went to a supermarket a couple of days ago. We're talking about service, okay? I went to a supermarket. I'm not gonna call its name. I came to the checkout counter, and there was a trolley by the checkout counter. As you all know, trolleys are generally there. They load your groceries into the trolley. You take it out to the vehicle. And there was one of the servers coming up to the trolley, and I looked at the cashier and I said, "I'll use this trolley." You know what the server said to me? The server said to me, "No, you can't get this trolley." I said, but I'm the customer." You know what her response was? "That don't mean nothing."
What?
I'm serious. I'm very, very, very serious. That was her response to me. Of course, I took it straight to the supervisor and straight to management, because I was not about to let that drop, because that is what we have happening. Go ahead, Guy.
Yeah. On the question of service, poor service is a product and reflection of how you're socialized, how you're trained, how you're developed. You cannot grow up unmanly, as we say, and then expect to go and give proper service. It's part of your values, your training, your attitude, how you treat people, etc. For us at David, we have to go again, like with literacy. The same way all standards of literacy and numeracy have fallen, those standards have also declined over the years. Yes, please, thank you, good morning. Those things have become almost alien for some people. But I want to talk about the question of implementation deficit, etc. There was a time, even when we were a colony, Barbados was renowned for the quality of its public administration. At one time, even in the 90s, we were named by some organizations as the best managed Black country in the world. So when you
Yeah, I
come to these
remember that.
you remember that when you come to these things, it is alien, almost alien to Barbados. And I think from my experience in government, both as a public servant, working as statutory corporate, and also a minister, is I think the people who are ministers nowadays largely are too busy governing. They're too largely being ministers rather than managing their departments and managing their PS and managing them to make sure they get the output they want. So you're a minister, so you're in a lofty, more almost abstract, and therefore you leave things to run themselves. So therefore you get these kind of outcomes. Even you talk about implementation deficit, what can be more embarrassing than the outcome or that? I can't say outcome. I don't know what the final verdict is. What has been the fate of our black belly sheep in Guyana? Black belly sheep are part of our national symbol personality. I mean, with all the technology, all the satellites, etc., cameras or on phone, I have not been able to see a picture of a Belgian Barbados there for what? How comes this the government pumps money to talk, but nobody sees anything about it? I think, and that is all part of the problem, lack of accountability. You see,
But
that a poo poo. One last thing, that a poo poo. After cabinet post cabinet press conference, if you read the manifesto or the Barbados Day Party in 2018, there was supposed to be a weekly things. You have two or 3 minutes to talk about the thing. Post cabinet press conferences are what the government selects to tell you about that they want publicized. We want sit down press conferences and let ministers be accountable to the public for their conduct. Let the press, the media ask them the question. Those are the genuine, bona fide, meaningful press conferences. Otherwise, all we get are some social handouts and PR spins.
Rose, any thoughts on any of this? Because I am sure you must.
Well, while she's gathering her thoughts, just let me remind the listeners tonight.
Yes.
The banner is up there for you to give us your calls. We are at 22 minutes into your time, but it's been so involving. 2367000. Now, I am not sure, to be honest with you, how we handle this, because I haven't got an indication from Davis yet that he's back in the back room. So I'm honestly not sure how we are going to handle those calls. I'm foreign to it.
Well, I think he may have to put them through. So
Yeah,
until we
might
get a
have to.
signal.
So I
Yeah.
think until I see a signal from him, I'll just pull that down for the time being. So go right ahead, Rose.
Yes, I'm listening with interest, and Maxine, as you were talking, I keep hearing the buzzwords: mission critical, mission rescue, mission transformation. And if I look back, I'm just pulling it out of my head because this is what the Prime Minister said in her quest and her plea to get Chad Blackman into the House of Assembly. And she said that they still have a lot of heavy lifting to do. She needs him in there because of all these other things that are outstanding. And in light of what you're talking here, implementation failures, it would raise the question, or to me, it appears as an indictment on her cabinet and her senior ministers and her parliamentary secretaries that did not get anything done. So you remember she said we need Tony Moore to do some heavy lifting. And so we got Tony Moore. And now we're here, we need Chad because we need to work on the economy and we need to continue this transformative mission or whatever we're on. And I'm asking the question because when I look at the manifesto, and you all know it always go back to that 2018 manifesto as it pertains to education. And that was mission critical to be implemented within the first 6 or how many months of assuming office. And then there was a jump from mission critical to mission, what's the one, is it survival?
Mission rescue, you said. I don't know if that's one.
Mission rescue. So yes, mission
I wrote it
critical,
down.
mission rescue. And this one, my head getting giddy It's like they're giving us political vertigo that before you get settled, they bring up another thing for you. No, it's mission transformation. That Shad Blackman is needed to help with this heavy lifting. Um, Liz Thompson was appointed Sherpa to help with the heavy lifting. And so the implementation seemed to be failing. To me, Maxine, you're more into management. I'm more into the training and the human resource development. Are they not biting? They seem to be biting off more than they can chew, and they're choking on it. Or instead of choking on it, they're spitting it out.
I think,
And
sorry, go ahead.
and one other thing to just look at the hopscotch. They started off with the town hall meetings. They started off with Paris Speaks. The next one now is what Ideas Forum. And they're getting all of these collective ideas and whatever, but I don't even see them acting or responding or even reacting to these things. So that's my contribution.
I think part of the challenge is because I want to say something quickly about customer service and service quality and all of these things. It is something.
1 minute, Maxine.
Go ahead.
I'm reading here Adrian Hines. He's saying mission rescue, mission ready, and mission critical. It's more like the mission impossible.
I was
And you know, there's a new Mission Impossible movie out.
Yeah, but listen, I was just trying to respond to him. And I was saying that maybe we should get what's the name of the guy from Mission Impossible again? I was just asking about what first name. Maybe we should get him to come as a consultant.
Bring the missions together. No,
yeah.
I think part of the problem,
Mr. Phelps.
I'll come back to customer service. Part of the problem, and I draw this from my interaction because I'm going to start at the top because people have been complaining that we've been going after the Prime Minister. And let me speak to that as I explain part of the problem. The way the Prime Minister has rolled out her leadership, everybody has, every time a minister opens his or her mouth, they make reference to the Prime Minister, what she wants, what she says must be done. So there's always reference to the Prime Minister. It is not what I'm doing in the ministry or what this particular ministry requires or what the stakeholders require. It is what the Prime Minister says, wants, believes, etc., etc. And therefore, all roads lead back to the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister, from my observation, and this was my interaction, is quick to seize on ideas. But I do not get a sense, I do not see the evidence that these ideas are tested, pulled apart, rolled out, examined, amplified. And that has to take place at two levels. You come to me with an idea, I have to work out in my mind first, my understanding of this idea, my reaction to it, my thinking of its strengths and weaknesses, etc. And then I hear from you. I do not see enough of what I would call that fleshing out of ideas. So people run off with the ideas, especially when they come with nice, fancy buzzwords. I remember the Minister of Educational Transformation sought to attack me when I referred to stuff that words he was saying. I don't like to use the word stuff. Things that he was saying on his first engagement publicly as a minister on a call-in program as a set of buzzwords. They were fancy sounding words, global leaders, creating global leaders, etc., etc. My thing, all of those things sound good, but how do we, one, connect them to the fundamental issues that we're tackling? And how do we make these things real? You know, how do we move
Yeah.
something from an idea to a fully fleshed out program? Or let me start even policy, and then you break it down into programs, etc. And I think that I call it a disciplined approach. That disciplined way of thinking and shaping things, I'm not seeing enough. So what happens? You come with these ideas, but if you ask somebody to give you a simple explanation as to what it is, so that you can understand whether it makes sense or not, people often can't do that. So
You,
things.
Maxine, there
I
is
think.
a question.
Mhm.
There's a question that I have been asking, even within my religious environment, Christian environment, even of the things that we read in scripture and we pontificate and we announce and whatnot. And it's this question: what does it look like? All this talk you have just expressed, all of these things that have been said, I want to know what they look like. In other words, how are you going to go from the idea to the actuality of the thing? And what I have been observing with this administration, and I'm specifically speaking to this one, is that I hear a lot of grandiose talk, but I do not hear how you intend to get to where you're talking. And I think this is where people are getting disillusioned, frustrated, disgusted, don't want to hear anything anymore, don't want to get involved, think that all of this stuff is just pie in the sky and the sweet by and by. Because you're not dealing reality. You're not dealing with, okay, we hope that in another 3 months we can do XYZ, and we project that da 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 da. And I hope you all understand what I'm trying to say, because I'm just asking the question: what does it look like? Go ahead, Blake.
Yes. Ferdy, first of all, Maxine was complaining about, I was noting that about the frequent references that ministers make to the prime minister, invoking her name. The prime minister wanted that. The prime minister said that she should go. If you went back to the campaign, 2018 campaign, in a speech they were required to mention her name more between 10 and 15 times in a 20-minute speech. Those were the instructions. They have internalized that, and that has lived on. Maxine, you talk about it has been a sector, for you talk about Barbados losing business. Kaipo, the corporate of international and corporate intellectual property, corporate affairs intellectual property. That yes, Bezos talks about Doge, Department of Government Efficiency. That approach was implemented in Barbados long before it was done under President Trump. Because the IMF, they had to amalgamate some other departments into KIPO, having laid off people. So more people are required to do more with less staff and less facilities. And right now they have not recovered yet from shortage of staff. So everything takes long. Apart from that, just like with BRA, just like with the customs, just like NIS, part of the problem are the unsuitable computer system that they saddle themselves with repeatedly. Systems that aren't able to be expanded to take you want to expand the capacity to do certain things. So certain things they want to do, the computers can't do them. So it slows down. I mean, that's part of the problem with NIS. And they have, my conclusion is to talk to a person who's been in the system a long time, at BRA, etc. That Barbadians, I think we've gotten ourselves into deals with computers, outside consultants, providers, rather than developing our own cadre of expertise who can write programs for us to suit our needs. People are here spreading and promoting these programs, buy them, and then they can't do your job, and they lock themselves in service contracts for years. I think when there was one organization when a man company had to pay $175,000 to come here each time if you had problems. That is madness. And they're not out of that yet. Those are part of the built-in problems that prevent them from modernizing, expanding, and becoming more efficient.
Last week, I went to renew my driver's license. And I went to Whole Town, and I was lucky because I went in the afternoon just before, the end of the work day. And there was going to the cashier and pay was very quick. Then you left the back of the building because you don't go upstairs anymore. It's all downstairs. And I went to the front, and it wasn't busy. There were probably about 5 people in the room when I got there, and I think a couple of them were together. So there were maybe about 3, 4 people ahead of me. But it took the time to hand in, because from what I understand happens, you hand in your old license. I don't know if there's information input that they input when you pay that feeds into the system. But it took about an hour to get the new driver's license. And I was told by somebody who knows the system that they have got some system that is very, very slow. I don't know where they got it from, if it is old technology that somebody bought.
Old deals.
Exactly. And so, so here we are talking a big promise, which was mission critical, I suspect, Rose. There was a promise to, I think Kay McConney was the minister of, innovation?
Smart technology and all that.
Smart technology.
Yeah.
So they get
not
some
so smart.
some dumpsy technology at licensing authority, unfortunately. So no, seriously, here you're supposed to be championing or certainly speaking about all of these changes, and something as simple as that. So I said to myself, if I went there in the middle of the day when there were 20 people ahead of me, I would have been there all day. I was speaking. This is something that happened last week. Some persons I know had to deal with Kaipo, and they were standing in waiting in line or being got there for hours.
Well, if I may just quickly, if I may just add about, I am told by friends in the service that the BRA is not integrated with the license authority. License is not integrated. So you could do things at one time, but they don't speak or communicate with each other.
But that was supposed to happen when BRA was set up. The BRA was set up to facilitate a whole set of things. I don't know what has happened. And you mentioned national insurance. You know how much millions of dollars have been spent for years and years to trying to make some system that they have their work. It is amazing. I think that as Jonathan B says, inadequate or unreliable IT systems are often intentionally designed to mask theft and corruption. Well, I know we've had some issues. Well, I don't know if it was I suppose the system system of checks and balances. I remember hearing of a case or cases where employees have been able to, the necessary checks and balances weren't in place.
It's not only in government though, Maxine, to be honest
I agree.
with you. I have had a personal experience. I won't say, well, don't let me say I've had it. I know someone that has had a personal experience with a particular financial institution in the country. Their card was hacked. And when they went to the financial, we are living in 2025, Maxine Glein Rose. I am engaging a business aspect tomorrow. And my son, who is currently off island in another country, Maxine, sent me an AI generated questionnaire and everything to do with what we have to do tomorrow. And he did that in less than 32 seconds. All right. And they go to the particular financial institution here concerning what has gone on where their bank card is concerned. And the people told them it's going to take between 4 to 6 months to have their funds returned to their account. And the person is asking, so what are you going to do in 6 months? I don't have no money on my account. And the institutions know that their finances in the institution are insured, so they can replenish that immediately. They don't have to wait. They can sort it out. But we are living. I mean,
But
it's like
I think part of the problem.
it's no wonder it's so difficult to get our international business sector done here. Maxine, Glenn, I know you want to say something there, but listen, I spent the last several years between here and Cayman. You know, when I order something for the assembly in Cayman and it arrives on Cayman Airways at 9:30, you know, by 11 o'clock, I got it in my hand and we at the office.
Okay, then.
I'm not kidding, you know, I'm
No,
deadly
I don't
serious.
doubt you. I don't
I'm
doubt you. I
deadly
don't doubt
serious.
you.
I have my invoices sent to me by digital, you know, they send email. You complete your information online with the customs department. You arrive at the customs office with your information, hand it to the people. They hand you the appropriate thing to go into the Queen's warehouse, have it
Warehouse.
checked, and you come back 2 hours later, pay what you had to pay, and out through the door you're gone in 2 hours. And what do we have? And I'm not. It's no criticism of our customs department. Don't get me wrong. I'm just simply looking at the aspect of the service component, because this is really what we're talking about at the moment. We're talking of you are going to get your license. Now, are we talking about service? I mean, you got to stand it for how long?
But what makes it more pathetic is that these are all revenue generating departments.
Exactly.
So you would think that
Exactly.
government will be eager to get their hands on the money as effective, efficiently, and smoothly, easy as possible.
No,
But a
they
lot
don't.
of the computer systems are not compatible, are not adaptable, etc. I think essentially you have to re-equip all of them, or just let Barbadians write their own computer programs to suit our peculiar needs. Because there's no other country in that has the same needs in the same way as Barbados. That is what we would do.
But there's some guys doing it, you know, Glenn. I saw a couple of
I know.
comments on Facebook, on my Facebook page, where a young man has just written a program. I can't even remember what it was about, Maxine. He's just written a program for Barbados.
No, it happens, and
It
the
happens.
skill sets are there. I think part of
Yes.
it too is that, and this is where you have to look and ask who makes the decisions. Why are the decisions taken to adopt or agree to invest in or license in certain kinds of programs and all of these things? Who benefits? Who, because oftentimes we go with a lot of things that we don't need, that are not suitable and are costly. So when you make these costly mistakes, you have to park them and so that's.
But
Yeah.
you may remember the year 2000 syndrome, where they
Yes.
were promoting ideas that when the figures show 1999 2000, all kind of calamities can happen. And they had people from America came, they were trying to sell all kind of programs and save jars of water.
Yeah, I remember that.
And the
I
Prime
remember
Minister,
that.
That magic switch over. I was
the Prime
director
Minister
of a
set up,
commercial bank at the time.
the Prime
And
Minister set up a committee, and I chaired it along with the late Darcy Boyce. He's my vice chairman. And we had all the agencies, the police, the defense force, the ambulance, everybody there. I'm going through this thing. I said, this don't make no sense. Why would a machine trigger all this? It's because it changes figures all day, every day. So why? So we refused to buy some very expensive program, and we just monitored. Had people on standby. The year 2000 came.
you know how many millionaires?
We did not spend a red cent.
Yep.
I'm very proud that we did not spend a red cent. Because it did not make sense.
Well, I'll tell you. I mean, when that happened, I had a Toshiba computer, and I went into my Toshiba computer calendar, and I saw the calendar for the years went to 2100 and 2200. I didn't get a single program because the computer already had the information on it. But Rose, you sitting back there so quiet. I can disturb your quietness. I mean, because you're hearing you're hearing so much here, because there is something though I wanted to quickly touch on, with your permission, and I know this is Rose's area. I recently, and I don't know how this can play into all that we're talking about, Maxine and Glenn and Rose, but recently I saw a video to do with, I think it was Denmark, reevaluating their educational system and removing all the technology from, I think, at their primary school level and getting back to basics. And the point the lady was making was that people like Gates and what's the fella's name from Apple again? Uh, Jeremy, what's his name again? The fellow with Apple.
All right, we
Uh,
understand who you mean. Go ahead.
right. That he did not permit any of his children to use any of the technology. No iPhone, no iPad, no nothing. And they were saying that they were trying to get the children back to study the basics, because when they move into the technology, because they lack the basics, they are unable to engage a lot of the things that they're seeing in the technological realm, because they don't even have a basic understanding of the English language, the mathematical calculations, the arithmetic, and all of that. Rose, in terms of what we're looking at from an educational standpoint, because all that we're talking about here in terms of the technology, I believe it needs to start from as early as primary school, in terms of the basics. In I learned, this one. I don't know if you all remember binary mass. Anybody here did binary mass?
I know the name, but I can't remember if I
The
did it.
one, the 1001, and I thought it was a bunch of
I,
rubbish.
I never did it, but I heard of it. It
Yeah,
probably
I
is.
heard of it.
yeah. What are your thoughts on that? And it may appear to be totally outside of what we're discussing, but I'm looking at some of the basic shifts and changes that we can make to improve what's happening in our country from an early stage, because we definitely need to have some significant change.
I recall that when the leader of the opposition spoke about the common entrance exam, he said that the day the child was failing before the day of the exam, and that is significant. We need to look at the indicators. I would like to know what are the yardsticks, the progression, how it's managed within the system. And it is bigger than the common entrance and getting rid of the common entrance exam as a means of transfer. But we need to look at that. A lot goes on in early childhood education. My concern is what happens when that child transitions from early childhood into the primary school system. And for me, I believe that it is curriculum overload. I think the curriculum at primary school needs to be critiqued, re-examined, and again, what is required, the basics. What must a child have in preparation for transition to secondary school to ensure a successful transition, however that is determined, but most importantly, that child's performance at secondary school. And I know the emphasis is on technology. I know we're looking at AI and robotics and all of these new areas within the curriculum beginning at primary school level. But I do believe we need to get back to the basics, using the technology in a what's the word? not informed, but using the technology
Appropriate?
appropriately,
Yes.
appropriately to teach the basics like numeracy, literacy, and comprehension. I hear they talk a lot about critical thinking. You know that critical thinking.
Comprehension.
What's critical thinking, Maxine? Comprehension.
Comprehension.
And
Yeah.
what I am talking about is the higher order skills in comprehension, such as making inferences. Why do you think? Why did it happen? What could have been done differently? If you were in that position, what would you have done? What would you have said? My experience working with children, for example, last Easter, we only had a couple of sessions with a family member who was not, how to put it, they did not think that he would make it into what we call a newer secondary school. When I looked at his report and I looked at his workbooks and his comprehension books and composition, I said, I got some work to do. The young man made it with very good marks into what we call an older secondary school, and not Queen's College, nor Harrison College, nor St. Michael, but one of those that fall or compromise, but one of those that fell very close to those four. And you know what I did? For example, they give you four, and the teachers here will understand a picture composition. And we teach the children, not me, but children are taught that the story must begin with the first slide. And I had to work on his thinking, no, the story can start at any slide. And I said, if there are 100 children writing that exam, always start at the first slide. Let's look at the 4 slides and see where you can begin your story. Didn't we get some exciting stories? So I'm saying, helping children to think creatively, think differently, and you don't have to get all these. I am tired, Maxine and Glenn and Ferdinand and listeners of all of this fanfare about, and we want them to become critical thinkers, help them to even in mathematics, teaching of math. I turn my teaching of math sessions into reading comprehension.
But as you say, I'm saying that's critical thinking. But you know, you put all labels that are new.
Yes.
And so
You
on.
see,
But you
but
see, to
that's
be able to do that, you need to have the basics. And in fact, Michael did correct, because when you say it's Sweden that would have done that in 2023.
yes, it's Sweden.
Yes.
And, you
It's
know, I
Sweden.
went and I looked, because I'd read the article, and they were basically saying school minister move students off digital devices and onto books and handwriting, with teachers and experts debating the pros and cons. Since young children went back, many of their teachers have been putting new emphasis on printed books, quiet reading time, and handwriting practice, and devoting less time to tablets and keyboarding skills.
Ferdy,
You know,
very good. Ferdy, can I jump in here?
Yes.
References have made it technology. Mankind has always had some form of technology. When in the school, we had technology. We had blackboard and chalk.
all right, that was the technology of the day.
A pen, all that with the pens,
And
all
what
those
was
are
that?
technology of the day.
What was that things? That square rule? What do you call that rule again? Remember that rule that we used to have, the slide rule?
Yes,
Slide
rule.
rule.
But I'm saying,
And the abacus. The
all right.
abacus.
The points we thought we knew. So once we forget the technology, it will change. What we're doing now in 5 years might be old fashioned,
Oh,
thinking
it's old-fashioned in
outmoded.
a year, not
So
5
think about that.
years.
And the current time, man has always been adapting and innovating and inventing to accommodate his life. Remember, you had to start with stone tools and iron and steel and glass. All that is technology. So you don't get carried away with
It
technology.
evolves. It
Right, it
evolves. It
Yeah,
evolves.
evolves.
yeah,
I'm
it
glad.
does.
I'm glad Rose brought up that thing because I like.
Yeah.
Before you go, because I'm not sure how much more time you have left, but just to say, Rose, that I had been looking forward to your original topic, your analysis of the campaign, of the BLP campaign platform speech. You remember that? That's what you were to dealt with originally tonight. Am I wrong?
Pardon?
You were supposed originally to have dealt with an analysis of the campaign of the BLP's platform
She did
during the
some
last.
of that. Yeah, you
Right.
did.
Yeah,
Yeah.
she touched on it. She touched on it.
I'd like a more extensive one on that because I think that's a useful exercise. And I would like to see the same thing extended to the DLP's campaign so they can both be equally assessed.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, again, you see, I must tell you, I'm thankful for the fundamentals I learned. We've looked a lot. You remember in terms of what you shared tonight, legacy. Um, Rose,
Yes.
let me just. I get a little feedback there, but in terms of the legacy and so on, looking back and benefiting, what we have benefited from in the past has set the foundation upon which we build. I think is the good Lord that said, the wise man is the man who hears my words and does them, and he built his house on rock, so that when things began to happen, his house stood. And so, if we don't make sure we have a solid, sound foundation, especially from our children growing up, because again, in your context of legacy, you talked about affecting future generations. And I'm just thinking to myself, if we don't have these foundational components enshrined, I look at countries like China, I look at countries like Japan, to see that they have sustained. As a matter of fact, somebody dropped it in here tonight. China has recently shifted toward a more what should I call it?
Streamline.
Non-technological,
Yes.
yeah, in terms of their learning
Traditional.
apparatus in their schools. And to me, what people are trying to do is to try to develop people's brains to think and not just depend upon the technological aspects that we have coming and are available to us. They actually should be enhancing what we are looking to do rather than replacing us. And this is the fear. You remember when all of this AI talk came up, Elon Musk expressed the concern of the abuse of it, and how it could almost literally make human beings, what's the word I'm looking for,
Obsolete.
obsolete.
Obsolete. Right.
And so I think that we need to have, and this is in terms of, this envelops everything that we're talking about, to be brutally frank with you, because we are no, don't let me say that, because I am not in the departure lounge.
You know,
I am
when
I am not even
I have not even booked my ticket yet.
yeah, I ain't approaching the airport either, so I
tickets
I
will be
have to
booked for
find a
us.
different way of expressing this.
Tickets will be booked for us, so we
Oh,
won't
I
even
see.
contemplate that. When it happens, it happens.
Let me tell you, I mean, you mentioned, Glide 5 years. I can tell you that within by next year, or even before the year is out, a lot of the stuff that we
But
are
but,
dealing with now is
but
going to be obsolete.
quickly, sorry to
Yeah.
interrupt, but I have friends who are in the creative sector, graphic designers. They are almost without jobs now.
Yes.
People say
Yes.
they just plug it into AI. AI comes up with something
Yes.
for them, and they build on it.
Yeah.
A lot of people have been laid off, jobs cut. They have to change jobs, to go abroad, all kind of, because a simple set of machine has now replaced whole departments. People put
Yep.
in
Yep.
15, 20 years, and they now have to start all over again. But we have become, listen, the first thing we have to do in Barbados is once again have a respect, a high regard for education as a process and as part of our life.
Yes.
We have to
Yes.
take it
Yes.
seriously, respect it, and build that into children from day one. People tell me that children, they go into stores and children don't, people who work, attendants don't even can't calculate 2 by 2 in their head.
No,
or 2 plus
no.
6. They all have to go on the machine or some
And
machine. I think
and
we have
and
we have abandoned. One quick thing, when they talk about using pencil and write, because when you are engaged with pencil, your whole being is engaged in writing as against on a tablet. So it's a whole process. And
yes,
remember,
yes.
a person's brain is not fully developed until the year 20. You have a lot of room in there in which
Hmm.
to influence
Hmm.
people. So we have to go back again to base it on not only in education, in cricket too.
Yeah,
We have to go
but
back
you
to the
know,
basic.
you said something in your presentation tonight, Glenn, in terms of I'm just trying to look back at it here. Let me just see if I can find it. When you talked about what was this thing? Psycho who? Um,
Psychohistory. Psychohistory.
Psychohistory. You were talking
Right.
about psychohistory. You were talking about how it focuses on understanding the unconscious factors that influence and determine individual actions, including the role of childhood experiences in socialization. I mean, even within a church setting, we pay attention to a lot of these things. You know, the Jesuits, I have said more than one occasion, tell us, give us a child for the first 7 years and I will show you the man. And I believe that a lot of what we are seeing happening, even within our governmental circles at the moment, decisions that are being expressed without any thinking, any analysis, or anything, has earned its way or worked its way up through the childhood development of
But,
some
but,
of
but
these people. And they
Ferdy
just
just,
simply have not mastered that.
Ferdy just, if you listen to the present reinstalled Minister of Educational Transformation, another set of buzzwords and labels. This government loves bywords, falls for them, and get hooked on them. What has he said yet? He has never said, he's not said 2 words yet that made me feel he's coming at anything different. He just repeats and regurgitates buzzwords and
Talking
nothing,
points.
no, yeah. Your president, he's made the same speech in the House as he made it during the campaign. Different length,
Uh,
but the same thing, right? So until we get past that, we will not see any growth and development that we need. We have to force it on them. Don't
Mhm.
fall for the labels, the education. Remember, it's education before transformation. It was education reform, education reform. Then it became education transformation. What next
Get a
now?
bigger word.
Yeah,
Yeah,
what
yeah.
next now?
Yeah,
I
Rose, you
Bigger
wanted to
word.
say
got me
something there just
tired.
now?
yes, please. Now
Uh-huh.
we're talking about education. I am asking us to keep an eye on this new development within the Student Revolving Loan Fund. And Maxine, we could probably talk about that sometime. You
Yes.
are asking what could have been done, how that $300 could have been stretched or reallocated or managed differently. The Student Revolving Loan Fund, which was being managed, being well managed, and we know that the debate that went on in the House of Parliament.
Mm-hmm.
Now I notice that it is called a new suite of loan products dubbed
Right.
EduFlex. Now they got something else,
Then you
another
flip.
buzzword, EduFlex. But my concern is we do know that that loan fund was allocated for overseas students or higher education and training. But now it includes loans for back to school expenses and extended to the primary school pupils.
Thank you,
So,
Rose. Thank you.
so,
Thank you. Go ahead.
so we are hearing, and it concerns me that a mother or a parent or a guardian now will have to. Is it so bad in Barbados that the student revolving loan fund now is opened? What is causing this projection. I don't know. I'm not an economist. I'm not like you, Maxine. But when I read that primary school parents now can go for up to 8,000 or $3,000 with 38 months to repay, and with an interest loan of moving from 6 to 8%, for a loan for a primary school child. Now, you know, that concerns me. So I'm asking us to keep an eye on this, what you call it now, the fancy name that
Eduflex.
they've given it.
Eduflex.
EduFlex. What is that? The EduFlex loan. And now it has a CEO, Maxine and Glenn. Wasn't that student revolving loan fund administered by public servants with a committee meeting to determine the loans?
What? Yeah, I'm trying to remember. I'm trying to remember. I had a former student who worked there. I was trying to remember her title. What you've now prompted me to go and do some research. I know that changes were made to allow students studying in Barbados to borrow from that. But as you mentioned, primary school. My question is, how much does a parent spend on a primary school child? And what, I'm just trying to understand.
And credit unions have had back to school loans
forever.
Because that is part of the penalty you pay when you put yourself in the clutches of the IMF. All these are things that happen in the United States where you must get a student loans. The United States are notorious where people lose university using owing $400,000 or $500,000 that they have to repay. Remember, Joe Biden had the Cancer Summit, and Trump has reinstalled. So they look at the pyramids and say you can make money out of this. We used to have, it reflects what they're also doing. What the government is also doing is admitting that people are impoverished. They're not having enough disposable income left in their hands to help buy. You can save over time to buy or get something for the credit union. Now you are at a department where it's another form of dependency.
Yep.
Clutches are where the private sector, the IMF feels that the private sector should run everything. So you're signing up for a semi-private sector system if the government to extract money out of poor people on the guys. That's what you need to get to a primary school. Those are things that either welfare or an agency have to take care of as part of the social cost of development. No, you must get a loan for it.
And we haven't even touched, Glenn, we haven't even touched on the privatization of the public service. I mean, of the bus service.
I know.
We haven't touched on that yet.
I got a lot to talk about that.
All right. So I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow night. I wish everybody could come back on tomorrow night. That's the truth, that we can continue. Because we get into some of these grooves and there's just so much to cover, and it's an education. I'm learning from you all with regards, but I got a lot of questions in my mind, and I find that we're dealing with an administration that seems to take offense when it is questioned or criticized. And I've learned down through the years, I had to learn it, that criticism is one of the most valuable things that I could have, because it causes me to rethink, even in terms of the operation of my home. The other day we had a little difference of perspective here in the home, and I had to stop and think about it from that perspective. Hadn't somebody not raised it, I would not have given consideration to that. And it is unfortunate that this administration that was exceptionally critical of the previous administrations.
This administration that talk accountability, reporting, openness, transparency is the worst, is the most secretive, controlling ever. And you
yeah,
can they are seeking to replace that openness by having these manufactured, what they call them, Paris speaks and ideas for. It's a fraud that is supposed to replace you. Ask them any questions. Nobody should go to them. Come
well,
and sit down, be questioned.
well, listen, folk, we could go on all night, and I mean, y'all can go on all night. I would just leave the system up because I got a 4 o'clock morning. I got a 4 o'clock morning with a team that I meet with. Um,
Okay.
I have a team that I meet with in the morning. But listen, this has been a incredible evening, filled with so much information. It's a good thing that that it's recorded on YouTube. That you can go you can go
Go back and
back
listen.
and
It isn't
listen.
lost. It
It
isn't lost.
isn't lost, and I hope that the members of the government who are speaking on political platforms in most disingenuous manners remember that YouTube loses nothing. It
That
is
is
there.
true. That
It
is
is
true.
there. And I say this most reverentially. It is there for eternity. You
It is
cannot
true.
take it down. So
It
when
is
you
true.
get up there and you open up your mouth and you say certain things, remember what goes around comes around. All right.
Comes back to haunt you.
Yeah,
That
your
is
words will
correct.
come back to haunt you, and we're seeing that, as you mentioned, as we wrap up, Glenn, the promises. Because I still remember, and God bless her. I like her. I think I find her a nice person. And we had a very amicable chat the other day. I ran into her at the licensing authority, the deputy prime minister. I personally, I find her a very likable person. I like chatting with her, and we always have good exchanges. And I think she must know all about me by now.
But
But you know, the thing about it is that I hear what you said when you were campaigning. You talked about integrity legislation. You talked about showing the assets when you came into up to now we don't know what people went
but,
into parliament with. And I keep saying you don't need legislation for Ernest and Young to perform an audit of your assets and place before the Barbadian public. You can always do the legislation
my but,
after,
my
you
last
know.
comment.
But
I promise this is my last comment. You talk about your engagement with deputy prime minister. You probably might have heard me talk from time about front stage behavior,
Mhm.
off stage.
oh yeah,
That is,
yeah, yeah. I
you
listen.
perform because that's the way it's
I
supposed to
know.
be.
Yeah,
You're
but
a member of the public, right? So don't fall for that.
yeah,
That is
no,
part of the role.
I don't fall for anything, and I'm one of those persons I don't think that would try that foolishness with, because
You
my mother know you, my father know you, my brother know
listen.
you, my sister know you, I know you, so
I
they don't try that with me.
I would only say
You
ask.
know, they
You
don't
should
try
probably
that
ask
with
if you should probably ask if some if all of her colleagues would say the same thing about her.
well, the
I
one thing I will say, the
I can
one
shut my
thing I
mouth,
will
Rosie.
say, the one thing I will say that that I did feel very good about her is that she was driving a BMW. So anyhow, I can just leave it. I can just
You
leave
still
it.
get commission. You still get
No,
commission
I
on
don't.
those sales.
I don't get commission on any of them things anymore. No, I'm sorry. I wish I did. I wish I was like the insurance fellas, you know, because all of this groundwork I laid all this groundwork for all of these benefits that these guys get in now. So, but I don't get anything for it. I'm just happy. I'm just happy to have represented my favorite brand and to have done, I think, a very good job at it, because you can see the testimony all over the country. Because I always say to people, whenever you see a Mercedes Benz, a Jaguar, Audi, remember they're there because of BMW. Okay, so anyhow, for look, that's another subject another time before
Yes.
Marcia fires me and I don't get a comment.
Well,
Let
it was
me
good to
thank
be in
all
your
of you.
company,
It was
gentlemen
so
and
nice
ladies.
being with you all again tonight as well. I had no choice but to bring you and Rose together and keep you, because Glenn said he didn't want me looking at my face all night long. So,
That's the truth.
so which is, you see, he's an honest fella. At least he's an honest guy. But it was so nice having all of you,
Yep.
really, really, and I particularly enjoyed. I always enjoy having you together. I learned so much. I learned a lot from you, Maxine, in terms of the experience you've had in government. Equally, Line, I learned so much from Rose, and I can see the comments
We
here.
learn from each other.
Yes, well,
That's true.
I've always said that the only place I don't
Synergistic.
think, at least I used to say that the only place that I don't think people are learning is in the cemetery, but I've subsequently discovered that depending on where you go, you keep learning. But anyhow, that's another subject. Gentlemen, ladies, it was a pleasure
Good
being with
evening.
you tonight.
Good evening.
I
Good
wish
evening.
you all a great night, and loyal opposition, thank you for staying with us to the 16 minutes past the hour.
I wish you all a great night, and loyal opposition, thank you.
I gotta mute you, Rose. We gotta get a lot of feedback there. But
Good
I
night,
want to
everybody.
thank the loyal opposition for being with us. All of you, Taroni, Lindsay, every single one. Adrian, too. Adrian, thank you for being there, keeping us on our toes. Appreciate it. Judy Jills, every single one of you. And particularly, we know Dave had a tough time tonight. He's been covering a couple of other things in Mars. And so I've had to carry those. I don't think I did too badly
You did a good
You did
job.
quite well.
I'm proud of you. In fact, I will recommend that you be promoted.
All right.
Thank you very much.
And be appointed.
I was looking for a song to close with, but I ain't that good yet.
You'll get there.
So,
You'll get there
I
eventually. Don't worry.
So until
Good night,
brothers,
everybody.
sisters,
Take
good
care.
night. God bless
Good
you.
night.
Bye-bye.
Take care, everybody.
Good
Promise
night.
us a better tomorrow. Tell me that the suffering done. Me a take the vote and let me down. Me a take the vote and let me down. She did only want little dealing, big contracts and not corruption. Me a take the vote and let me down. Me a take the vote and let me down. Barbados is too small for me. My pocket full, now you and job they promise me. And a girl like me want power and more money. You cry transparency, but that's a no for me. Promise us a better tomorrow. Tell me that the suffering done. Me a take the vote and let me down. Me a take the vote and let me down. She did only want little dealing, big contracts and not corruption. Me a take the vote and let me down. Me a take the vote and let me down.
All right. Have a good one.